Hey everyone. Hope you're all doing well. We're all about bringing high-quality web novel audiobooks to life, and most of our content is completely free to enjoy. Just a quick note, web novels and web novel audiobooks aren't the same thing. Simply reading a novel out loud doesn't always make for a great listening experience. That's why I go through multiple rounds of rewriting and careful editing for every chapter to make sure the narration flows naturally and immerses you in the story, just like reading it yourself. These audiobooks are not just direct copies of the original novels. I've adapted them for a smoother, more engaging experience. And to be fully transparent, these adaptations are made for commercial purposes, so some chapters are paid content. But don't worry, this process is fully copyright compliant. I do all of this because I truly love web novels and audiobooks. I'm a huge fan, and this story is one of my personal favorites. YouTube update: recently, YouTube flagged some of our content for including mature themes, realistic violence, and darker story elements. As a result, we've decided to stop uploading anything that violates YouTube's guidelines. If you'd like access to the full, uncut versions including the more intense or mature content, you can find them on our Patreon page, where we upload everything first. Available now on Patreon: I Am a Legendary Boss audiobook, Versatile Mage starting with the White Tiger Pendant, Naruto the Wind Calamity, the Necromancer is amassing troops like crazy in the apocalypse, the mighty dragons are dead, Naruto, leader of Hidden Grass Village, Naruto Uchiha's Unserious Saga, your lord has a screw loose, Apocalypse I can see the health point bar, killing monsters drops loot, Starsea Fleet Age of the Lord, my monster fuses everything, Naruto, I traveled with a max level account, Fate in Bleach Unlimited Blade Works, killed for 100 years in Hueco Mundo, Aizen invited me to Soul Society, the world conquest giving birth to become a god, my master only breaks through on the edge of death, Bleach the Invincible Slacker from Rukongai, Naruto's Special Shop, One Piece the strongest female pirate cruise, Reborn as Danzō's grandson, must I offend the entire ninja world, Naruto starting with snatching the Mangekyo Sharingan, Naruto Card King, in Hueco Mundo with Shindu template, Naruto the Hidden Danzō, my journey as fourth Kusagakure, Naruto Troublesome Ninja Haruto, Naruto the Hyuga Mastermind, Bleach the strongest Shinigami, Bleach the 5th Division Captain, Fate Ultimate Antagonist, Fate of DXD, Fate I Heard After Death, you can ascend to the throne of heroes, Fate DXD Archer Reborn, Fate beginning with Type Moon, a Berserk Heart, Fate Grand Order Insert, One Piece take the Uchiha clan to the Grand Line, One Piece don't worry, I'm a doctor, building harem and dungeon with monster girls, DXD, Multiverse the day-to-day life of the Sephiroth hero, I'm the bad guy but heroines are obsessed with me, in Naruto, I have an affair with Mikoto and Kushina, many children bring happiness, a shameless start, Naruto Reborn with a Tenseigan, Naruto sleeping Invincible, One Piece, life choice ask me to kiss marine goddess Hina, reborn as the genius son of the richest family, start by eating jacket fruit model, jacket human devil fruit, the days of being the richest man in the ninja world, the Witcher and Madara Uchiha, villain I possess the dragon Yang Dao physique, all saintesses turns into villainesses, all beautiful girls want to stick with me, interdimensional farming in another world, Naruto from Hidden Leaf Village to One Piece, and more. Most of our content there is free, and it's the best place to follow and support our work. The default audio speed is set to 3x, but if that's too fast for you, just let me know, I'm happy to adjust it. Got a favorite web novel you'd love to hear as an audiobook? Drop a suggestion. I'm always open to new ideas. And don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Twitter, X for the latest updates, new releases, and behind-the-scenes content. Thanks so much for your continued support and happy listening. Chapter 1, sent 20 years into the past? Ugh. Darius squinted as he opened his eyes. Am I dead? He slowly sat up and looked. He was in what seemed to be a bathroom, and a smelly one at that. If this was Hev, Darius wanted no part of it. However, he quickly realized that he was as far as possible from Hev. Rookie, get out of there. Yuna is about to be done with her debut. A frown creased Darius's face. He had just died, hit by a truck. So why did he still have to work? What kind of stupid afterlife was this? However, the frown deepened at the name the man on the other side had just mentioned. Yuna? He repeated. You mean the top star who's about to win her 5th Grammy? Why is she here? Didn't she drop us a few years ago? Did you vomit so hard you started hallucinating? The man on the other side responded. I'm talking about Yuna, the non-Grammy winner. She's debuting today, and you're my assistant. Yuna never fired us, she just hired us yesterday. What the hell is wrong with you? Debuting? How could she be debuting? Darius thought as he slowly opened the door, almost scared to see who was on the other side. Standing there was his boss, the person who had made his entire life a living hell. If there was one person Darius hated, it was him. However, there was one significant change: he was younger, a lot younger. As far as Darius could remember, his boss had gray hair, and now it was brown. All the wrinkles on his face were gone. Don't tell me that. Darius shook his head. What year is it? We're in '04. Why? Darius stayed still, blinking repeatedly. He must have misheard. There was no way he was back 2 years in the past. Today is my first day as your assistant, right? Darius painfully remembered this day as if it had happened yesterday. It was the day that made his reputation miserable. And the thing is, it was all because of Yuna. Still, knowing what would be happening in the next hours, he should be able to make things different this time, eh? His boss was getting angrier by the second, his fists clenching tightly. Are you lost or something? Yes, today is your first day. But I have a strong feeling it might be your last. The only way for you to keep this job is if you make a good impression on Yuna. But that probably won't happen, you're too much of an imbecile. Darius wasn't sure how or why, but he was back 2 years in the past, at the very beginning of his career as a manager for all kinds of actors, singers, and sports players. His career had always been pitiful in the past, but it seemed the universe had given him a new chance at making it big. However, if things were unchanged, Darius was in a great position. He knew all of the future big hits and unknown superstars. There was just one thing he needed to do before quitting this job and cursing his boss. He needed to recruit Yuna under him at all costs. She was destined to become the biggest pop star the world had ever seen. He couldn't let that opportunity pass by. Seeing that his boss, Cullen, was on the verge of firing him, Darius bowed. However, he promised himself that this would be the last time he ever bowed to anyone. He would make others bow to him in the future. Sorry. We should go take care of Yuna. She's probably waiting by now. Cullen nodded and moved out of Darius's way. They quickly reached her location backstage, where she was resting. Darius stared at her, unable to believe his luck. She really was there, right in front of him. She was ever prettier than he remembered. Yuna had long blonde hair and pearly eyes. She wore a short gray skirt that revealed her perfect lower body, and a tight black tank top that actuated her perfect curves. Her physical appearance was ideal for becoming the next star. However, while her looks were perfect, her attitude was one of the worst Darius could remember. It was also one of the reasons why his life had turned to absolute shit after meeting her. Where were you two? She asked, her tone just as hostile as Darius remembered. I'd be waiting here for 5 minutes, and you were nowhere to be seen. You're practically begging me to fire you both. Cullen bowed to her, apologizing profusely, while Darius just watched, unsure of what to say or do. He knew he needed to take his time with her, she wouldn't be easy to win over. What do you want to do, Yuna? Cullen asked. She clicked her tongue. I just want to go home. Can he drive me there? She pointed at Darius, and Cullen nodded immediately. And that's how my past life nightmare started. Darius? Yes. Yes, he can drive you. Do you want to leave? Yuna finally smiled, standing up from her seat. Right away. Let's go. She grabbed Darius's arm as she passed by, practically dragging him along. Just as she touched him, a beeping sound resonated in his mind, followed by a soothing feminine voice. Beep. You have made physical contact with the future pop star, Yuna. Do you want her to join your Talt squad? Another frown appeared on Darius's face as he walked behind Yuna, who kept holding his hand for some reason. Talt squad? What is that? The Talt squad is a group of individuals onto which you can use your special skill, Talt Booster, and what does that special skill do? Talt Booster can increase the Talt and aptitudes of those in your Talt squad. The more intimate you are with an individual within your Talt squad, the greater the skill's effects. More questions filled Darius's mind about this skill of his, like where it came from, who had given it to him, and how intimate he had to be with the members of his Talt squad for it to have a great effect. All those questions deserved answers. However, he wouldn't be getting them right now as the voice in his mind made him dismiss his thoughts. Do you want Yuna to be in your Talt squad? There wasn't the slightest hesitation. Yes. I want her to join it. Chapter 2, A Change in Yuna's Personality. Yuna, the future pop star, has joined your Talt squad. Get closer to her to improve her Talts and aptitudes. You can see her current aptitudes by thinking of the word status. You can only have 2 other people in your Talt squad as of now. Increase your popularity to increase the size of your Talt squad. Current popularity, 0. His eyes winced as he looked at the number 0. However, he knew that it was right. He was a nobody. He had always been a nobody, and he needed to make that change as fast as possible. Darius didn't waste any time as he was actually quite curious as to what her current abilities looked like. Status: Yuna Kim, age, 8, Talt, SSS rank, class, singer, vocals, pitch, 7. Rhythm. 5. Charm. 9. Skills. None. He barely managed to read all of her stats as she kept pulling on to him to walk faster. Still, he noticed that her actual skills for singing weren't too great from the looks of it. The one thing that made her a lot better was her charm, which was higher than all of her stats combined. Darius also couldn't help but think that it was a fair assessment. Her curt singing skills were certainly lacking compared to her body. Thinking of her body, Darius's eyes drifted toward the lower half of her body as she was practically running in front of him. Her ass, which was practically out because of her mini skirt, made it hard to concentrate as he started feeling his lower half getting harder and harder. Focus. You need to make sure that the same thing as the last time doesn't happen. Slapping his own face, Darius looked away from her body as he knew what would happen if he continued. He shook his head. He didn't ever want to think about it. Soon, they reached the car, a black van typically used by groups. This time, it was just for the two of them. She sat right next to him in the front seat and kept touching and caressing his arm over and over again, playing with him. In the past, her playfulness had worked on him as he had got tricked by her to initiate a move on her, which ruined his career. However, this time he would stay focused on his task. Not giving her the slightest amount of action was the best way to get closer to her. It sounds like the opposite of what one should do, but it was true. The more you ignored her, the more she would try to grasp your action. So where is your home? Darius asked, not mentioning her constant touching. She laughed. My home? That was only an excuse to leave that annoying guy behind. Don't you want to SPD time with me? We can go anywhere you want. It doesn't matter where. Darius clicked his tongue out of annoyance. He could still remember his flushed face the last time she had said those words. He remembered asking her if she wanted to go to a hotel with him. Oh, how stupid he had been. Staying focused on his task, Darius ignored her tricks. I'm sorry, I was asked to take you home. Could you tell me the address? She frowned cutely. You don't want to SPD time with me? TSK. And here I was hoping to SPD the day with you. She looked down and played with her fingers a bit. You look cute. This time, Darius raised an eyebrow. He couldn't tell if she was actually being serious or not. She had never called him cute in the past. However, she had just told him that. Maybe it was a trick. Still, Darius started hesitating, unsure if it might be a side effect of her joining his Talt squad. Beep. A person joins the Talt squad, they have a slightly more favorable attitude toward you. Since this is your first recruit, getting closer to her has been made easier. Darius's eyes widened as the feminine voice uttered those words in his mind. Made easier? Just who was the one talking in his mind? Still, this meant that she might not be joking. Was Yuna actually asking him to SPD the day with him? Was she actually thinking that he was cute? Are you serious? Darius slowly frowned. You think I look cute? As far as he could remember, his appearance had been subpar in the past. No girls had came up to him asking for his number, or have tried to flirt with him. So, for someone as beautiful as her to do it, there had to be something here. The skill might be extremely powerful, but there had to be a limit, right? Wanting to get a quick look at himself, Darius looked into the car's mirror at his face, and it wasn't anything like before. His skin was perfect? He had no face fat. Thinking about that, he looked down and saw that his body was ripped, which was impossible since he had never once gone to the gym to train. The only thing that had stayed the same was the color of his eyes and hair, which were red and black. It seemed that voice or whoever it was had changed his entire body. Still, with this physical change, Yuna might actually be telling the truth. She might actually want to get closer to him. Darius glanced at her, and her face had turned bright red. Why yes, I think you're cute. A smile appeared on Darius's face. The arrogant Yuna was curtly blushing while talking to him. Who could have thought? So, do you still want to drive me home? She asked, shyly looking at Darius. Right as he was about to answer, a distinct noise echoed inside his mind. Beep. First quest, make Unifier within the day, rewards, +5 popularity, skill, finger of pleasure, and failure, death, with a look of confusion at the rewards thrown at him, and at the failure. The words came out of his mouth on its own. No. Let's go somewhere else, just the two of us, Darius said as he had no idea how any of this was ever possible. Just who was giving him all those rewards and quests? Chapter 3, Manipulating Yuna. Darius had decided to go into a small coffee shop not too far away from where she had debuted. On the way there, things had been mainly silt, with Darius asking her a few questions about her plans for the future. After all, he didn't want to die. He needed to make her fire within a single day. Why did you hire by the way? Darius asked. I'm not supposed to tell you this, but he's a bit of an asshole. Darius wasn't lying. After the incident with Yuna in the past, he hadn't fired but decided to keep him. However, his job mainly consisted of being Colin's slave, always listening to his every word, or else he would threaten him of spreading the news about trying to sexually assault Yuna. Of that had have happened. She frowned. She heard my comment. Didn't you start working with him today? Darius realized his mistake, and managed to salvage the situation right away. Right. That is true. However, everyone in the industry knows of him and his special attitude toward his recruits. This time, it was Yuna who frowned as she had no idea what Darius was talking about. After all, he was about to lie to her. You didn't hear about him getting closer to his recruits, and forcing them to do stuff with them. Damn, I guess he managed to keep that story under lock. She gasped as she heard his words. She couldn't believe it. Are you serious? He forces people to have sex with him? Darius looked back at the road and shrugged. You didn't hear it from me, alright. I also find it disgusting, but I'm a nobody. What can I do? I don't have an exi, worse, I don't have a 12 to take care of. I'm just a rookie assistant, listening to his every word. There was a look of pity on her face as she patted his back. That sounds horrible. I had no idea that he was such a monster. A smirk appeared on Darius's face for a second before it returned to normal. He had already managed to make her think about dropping Colin with those accusations. Making her fire him within a single day would be child's play, especially with the help from the voice in his mind. Do you have any plans for the future? Darius continued. I saw your performance earlier, and I was mind blown. You really looked amazing on the stage, everyone was gawking at you. She shook her head. Most of them were only there to ogle at me, and my stupid outfit. I saw you doing it earlier too, but with you it's not as bad. Because, you know. She didn't want to say her reasons. However, Darius was a little embarrassed that she had say him. Right. Sorry, it was too hard to resist. So, you want to be recognized for your skills and not your looks, is that it? She nodded extremely quickly. Exactly. I don't want people to come watch me because of how I look. I find it disgusting. Darius smiled. Everything was just perfect? He had no idea if it was because of the voice in his mind, or if it was actually her thinking all of those things. But if it mattered, to be honest, Darius couldn't care less if he was getting helped by someone else. Hell, he could die if he failed to do this. At least, that's what the voice in his mind had said, and as far as he could tell, it didn't seem to be lying. Well, I know someone who could make you a lot better at singing. She grabbed his arm instantly. Who? Please tell me. Darius wasn't sure if he should be saying it right now since it was quite embarrassing. But he pointed at himself. You? She didn't look very convinced. You know how to sing better than me? Darius clicked his tongue. Not exactly. But I have connections that could make you better if you were to practice with them. It wasn't the time to be talking to her about his skill and the fact that they needed to be more intimate with one another for it to have greater effects. She wouldn't believe him either way. It was better to recruit her slowly but surely. Still, Darius had lied again. He had no connections in the entertainment world. He had told her earlier, he was a literal nobody. She stayed silent for a while as they finally reached the coffee shop and entered it. Darius was shocked that no one came up to Yuna, but he remembered that she was still unknown. No one ever knew what she looked like, her career had only started very recently after all. They took a coffee and sat next to each other on a large seat. Darius stayed pretty reserved with her, and she also did the same as her touching had calmed down compared to inside the coffee shop. I have a question for you, Yuna subtly uttered as they were awkwardly drinking their coffee. I'm all ears. If I were to fire Colin, would you resign? Darius celebrated from the inside as he kept a straight face on the outside. I don't know. I fought really hard to get this job. I don't want to leave just as I got it. She waved her hands as if to apologize. No. You wouldn't become jobless by resigning. You see, I'm not sure if I'm making the right decision, but from what you told me earlier about his weirdsies, I was wondering if you would be up to resigning and becoming my manager. I fucking did it. Why does it feel like it was too easy? Her personality is truly nothing like I remember. Ever since he had recruited her into his Talt squad, her entire personality had shifted. The voice truly had made things a lot easier. Becoming your manager. Darius acted as if he was hesitating. Chapter 4, First Recruit, Yuna. Becoming your manager. Darius acted as if he hesitated. I'm not too sure if that would be in my greatest interest. She frowned. What do you mean that would be great for you? You wouldn't be an assistant any longer. You would actually have an artist under you. Darius was surprised. She looked determined to get him as her manager, which was surprising since she would be her first one. Why do you want me so much? You could probably find someone better within the industry. She shook her head. I don't know. If I join a big agency, they'll probably not ev glance at me or ev take care of me. That's why if I'm the only one that you have to take care of, all your action will be on me. Darius couldn't help but nod. Her decision wasn't random, she had actually thought this through quite a lot, and for the most part, she was totally right. However, joining a rookie manager had those advantages. It also had disadvantages, such as a lack of resources. What about my cut from your earnings? Darius asked. What do you offer? What about 5%? Darius wasn't too greedy. For the simple reason that he knew about the future, 5% of her income would be literal millions in a few years. This was simply an investment, and he could also increase his cut as he became more and more famous for his faults as a manager. She thought for a bit and finally nodded. Sure, sounds good. You better deserve those 5% in the future. She had a smile on her face as she threatened Darius. However, it was more of a playful comment than anything. Should I call Colin right away to announce the news about our departure? Yuna asked. However, Darius shook his head. He still had hours until tomorrow. He might as well have a little fun with his resignation. He wanted Colin to remember it for the rest of his life. Darius wanted him to regret all the things he had done in the past to him. If they hadn't happened in this timeline. Either way, he had completed his first quest, even if it wasn't official just yet. His rewards could wait. He would enjoy his day. Let's wait a little. The day still isn't over. We have to have finished our coffee. She smiled. Right. I did ask to hang out with you. Her cheeks turned red upon realizing that she was the one who had asked for all this. Don't think that I'm an easy girl or anything like that. I never ask guys out. You're, different. A smirk appeared on his face. And how exactly am I different? She looked away from Darius as he stared at her. I don't know. It's your energy. There's just something about it. Darius frowned at those words as it was the first time that he had got the slightest clue about the voice in his mind. Thinking about it, Darius decided to ask it a question directly. Who are you? He waited for a few seconds, and nothing happened. There was no beeping noise inside his mind. He could only guess. All Darius knew was that this voice was extremely powerful. It brought him back to the past, and it also gave him a skill that has the potential to become extremely rich and famous in the future. You still there? Yuna asked as she noticed that Darius looked distracted with something. She barely touched his arm as she said those words. Darius looked at her and noticed that she was already done with her coffee. Right, sorry, I just thought about something else for a few seconds. Since you're done with your coffee, where do you want to go next? She looked hesitant, but formed an answer in a few seconds. I don't feel like doing anything, really. I just want to go home. Darius's eyes widened. Is she inviting me there? He thought that she was moving forward quite fast as he hadn't expected something like that to happen right away. He had planned on taking things slowly so that she could learn more about his special skill later. But if she wanted to get more intimate right away, Darius wouldn't refuse. Sure, I can drive you there. They both got into the van once again and quickly toward her house, which wasn't too far away from where she had been staying. However, they arrived, a look of confusion found its way on Darius's face. That's her house? He thought, perplexed as it looked nothing like he imagined. The arrogant Yuna was living in a pitiful apartment in the middle of nowhere. Still, with her looks, it wouldn't take long to find her multiple deals to make a lot of money. We should call Colin together before I leave. That way, we can explain what we want to tell him at the same time, Darius said with a serious look on his face. He wasn't planning on being invited inside as he was only supposed to be dropping her off. He had also accomplished his quest, meaning that he couldn't care less if things were stopped right here today. After all, he would get a lot more opportunities since she was now his first recruit. Still, Darius looked in her direction. It was clear that Yuna was hesitating about something as her mouth opened and closed a few times, and her face was bright red. Why you want to leave already? She whispered. However, with the low tone of her voice, Darius was able to hear it perfectly. Well, I don't know. I thought you wanted to sleep or something. Isn't that why you wanted to go home? Darius acted naive on purpose, as he didn't want Yuna to have a bad opinion of him. Still, she shook her head. And no, you should come inside. We should talk a little bit more about the contract and all that stuff. It was clearly an excuse, but Darius just shrugged. Who was he to refuse to get intimate with such a beauty? Sure, let's go inside. Chapter 5, Tipsy Massage. The two of them walked up to her apartment without waiting a moment. It was quite awkward between the two of them as they didn't talk to them on the way there. Still, they made it as Yuna unlocked the door. Do you want something to drink? She asked right away as she dropped her bag on the left. Darius glanced at and quickly muttered. Sure. Her apartment looked nothing like he had expected. He first met her, he was convinced that she had always been rich based on how she acted. However, that wasn't the case whatsoever. There was trash lying everywhere, with a few outfits hung out by the window. It was obvious she needed money, a lot of it at that. She was living in a one-room apartment with only the necessities for her to survive. Darius didn't make a comment on it as he quickly sat down just below her bed, his head resting on it. Yuna got 2 oaked beers in her hands as she sat down next to him. So can you tell me more about that contact of yours? Darius looked at and wondered if he should tell her right now or not. Still, he shook his head. Now wasn't the time. My contact. Well, I'd prefer to wait until everything is official since he is quite the valuable person. Darius flattered himself without the slightest hesitation. After all, she had no clue that he was talking about himself. I see. Yuna slowly nodded as she took a good sip of alcohol. Feels good. Today was rough. Hearing her talking about the day, Darius remembered that today was her debut in front of a very small audience. He remembered Colin getting an insane amount of calls about her featuring in all kinds of advertisements for companies. It was saddening, but of them had contacted them about her skills as a singer. They were all after her beauty. About today. Did you like it? Performing in front of those people? She took another sip of alcohol. Her beer was already half empty as she drank quite a lot. It was okay. Still, most of them were old weirdos. Though, I hoped they liked me. My future depends on it after all. Darius shook his head with a lot of confidence. Oh, don't worry. They liked you. Remembering all the brand deals and offers that she was about to receive, Darius realized that he needed to make her change manager. Still, things took a turn. He looked at the beer in her hands. You finished it already? Darius exclaimed, unsure about what was happening to her. He didn't think that she was the type to drink that much alcohol in the first place. She was a lightweight, after all. In fact, both her cheeks were already getting redder as they spoke. This much is fine. Her head slowly bobbed as her eyes were half closed. She turned to look at Darius as she stared at him dead in the eyes. You really are cute. She approached her hands closer to Darius's face. However, just as she was about to touch it, she fell asleep, falling into his arms. Darius glanced at her vulnerable self, unsure of what to do. She was in his arms, completely unconscious. It was Yuna, the most famous pop star in the world, who was in his arms, giving herself up to him. Glancing at her, Darius gulped as he could see all of the cleavage as they were squished against his body. Her clothes were barely doing their job, as her skirt wasn't covering anything to begin with, and her tank top was so tight that Darius could see the form of her breasts perfectly. Darius removed her from his body as he picked her up and carefully dropped her on the bed, as her body moved on its own and put itself in a more comfortable. Darius wasn't too happy with her falling asleep since he needed her to call Colin to fire him, or else he would die. He still had some time, but he didn't want to risk it too much. Because of that, he slowly shook her body as he whispered. Hey, wake up. She pushed him away with both her hands. Just leave me alone. However, that wouldn't do. Darius continued as he slowly tapped her back and continued to wake her up. And her eyes finally fluttered up. Ah. Her eyes widened. You're still here? She looked at her clothes and how close she was to him and started worrying. Did we, Darius shook his head. Ah. No, don't worry, nothing happened. She clicked her tongue for some reason. She looked and it was clear that she was still tipsy. Yuna touched her back and muttered. Ugh, my back hurts. Could you massage it for me? Darius frowned, not expecting her to be so direct. However, to make sure things weren't confusing, Yuna quickly added something else to her statement. Aren't you going to be my manager? Shouldn't you massage me? That way, I'll be in the best possible shape for my performances. A smile crept on Darius's face as he accepted to massage her back. He slowly rubbed the back of it as her tank top got in the way of his massage. However, he didn't say anything about it as he kept massaging her. Anne, this feels good. Can you go a bit lower? It's very stiff down there. Darius moved his hands down a bit more since it was what she asked for. His hands were just over his mini skirt as he took a better position to massage her, climbing onto the bed as a whole. He got on right beside her, using both his hands to pleasure her. Lower. A slight sound of pleasure was released from her mouth. Go just a bit lower. Darius was already right above her skirt. If he went lower, he would start massaging her ass. Are you sure? Yes, lower. It's very, very stiff down there. You want me to massage there? Darius asked as he placed both his hands on her ass. Yes. Please, right there. Darius couldn't see it, but Yuna's face was completely red as she uttered those words. This massage felt extremely good for some reason. It was as if electricity was coursing through her body. Chapter 6, Yuna calls Colin. As the massage continues with both his hands on her ass, Darius had a smile on his face. Who would have thought that he would be in this situation? He had got hit by a truck this very morning. Her ass was plump and fitting perfectly in his hands as he grabbed and massaged right away. And she put her hand on her mouth right away as that sound came out of her mouth. Darius had heard the moan but acted as if nothing happened. He was still managing over her skirt for the moment. However, temptation was slowly getting the better of him as he could see her bare ass and her black panty as he continued the massage. This is perfect. Just like that. Darius laughed in his mind as he couldn't wait to see the effect of his skill on her status, since they were clearly getting intimate with one another. It wasn't anyone who could massage her ass. Actually, thinking about it, wasn't this the perfect situation to call Colin and humiliate him for good? An ever bigger smile crept up on Darius's face. Since you don't have anything to do, why don't you call Colin and announce him the big news? Darius could only smile as he imagined him seeing the two of them on the same bed and seeing Darius massaging Yuna. The shock in his eyes would be the perfect sight. However, he wouldn't make her turn on the camera right away. He would make sure that it would be an actual shock for him, an unforgettable memory. Why you want me to call him right now? She said, her voice shaking. Shouldn't we wait for this to be over? No need. It's not like we're doing anything weird, right? Right. That's true. Yuna tried to get her cell phone, but she realized that it was placed at the top of her black tights. She looked back toward Darius for the first time since the massage had started and said, "Could you give me my cell phone? It's in my right tight high." Darius looked down and saw it instantly. He grabbed it as he continued to massage her as best as possible. "Are you stiff somewhere else?" Darius asked, knowing that this was his best chance at getting as close to her as possible. He had no idea if he would ever be able to do something like this ever again, so he took all his chances. And it wasn't like he was doing this only for himself. He was trying to improve her aptitudes. Right, that was the only reason why he was doing this. Well, it's a bit stiff on my waist if you want to." She slowly turned and while she did, her ass rubbed against Darius's crotch area. She felt his hard rod because of the massage, and a smile crept up on her face as she hadn't been sure if Darius was ever interested in her from how he had previously acted. Now, they were standing face to face, and she had ever decided to take things further. You can get on top of me if you want to be more comfortable massaging me." Darius didn't need to be told this twice as he immediately got on top of her, just above her mini skirt. Yuna smiled and opened her cell phone, calling Colin right away, and Darius continued the massage at her waist, just below her breasts. Dring. 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 Her cell phone rang 3 times as she held it next to her ear. And quickly off, Colin answered. "Yuna?" Colin said. "Did you get home safe?" Darius continued to massage her at her waist, not moving his hands upwards just yet. I did. Is there a problem? Why are you calling me?" Darius couldn't hear what was being said in their conversation, but he started moving his hands upwards as he slid his hands below her tank top, grabbing both of her breasts. And she put her hand on her mouth as fast as she could. Her moan still coming out of her mouth. "Sorry, I didn't hear you. Did you say something?" Yuna took the cell phone away from their mouth as she mouthed words in Darius's direction. Anyone with 2 eyes could tell that she told him to stop. However, that only made Darius want to continue as he fondled her breasts with ever more action. There were only 2 things on Darius's mind. The first one was that he wanted to humiliate Colin, and the second one was to remove her black tank top. "Yeah, I need to tell you something." She put her hand on her mouth again, blocking her moans from coming out of her mouth. I'm firing you." A moan got mixed into her sts as Colin didn't seem like the happiest person in the world. He heard what she had just said. "Firing me? Where is that coming from? Is it because of that idiot Darius? Just what did he do again?" "Don't worry, I'm firing him tomorrow he comes back." Darius seemed to hear his name, so he asked her to put the phone on speaker mode. That way, he would also be able to hear their conversation. Yuna's face was getting redder and redder as the excitement was getting higher. Darius grabbed both ds of her tank top as he slowly removed it from her body. Yuna helped him as Colin's voice kept coming out of the phone. Darius could now see her naked upper body, and it was almost naked as she was only wearing a mini skirt and tight black highs. Darius admired the view for a few seconds and continued what he had been doing beforehand. Yuna wasn't saying anything that said she didn't like what was happening. There was only embarrassment on her face as she brought the phone close to her mouth once again. Don't worry. It's not because of him. It's the furthest thing away from that." A smile appeared on her red face as she moved the phone away from her face to show me her beautiful face. "Are you alone?" Why do I keep hearing high-pitched screams close to you? Colin asked. Darius heard that and just smirked. If only he knew. He couldn't wait to see his reaction. He learned what was really happening. Chapter 7, a special little video screams. What are you, ANH? Talking about? It just happened again. Can't you hear them? Yuna once again looked at Darius in the eyes, practically begging him to stop touching her body while she was on the phone. Colin couldn't find out what they were doing. It must be a bug. I can't hear anything, sorry. Still, that wasn't the matter here as Colin brought them back to the situation at hand, the part about her firing him. But do you want to fire me? In less than a day at that, did I do something that didn't please you? She frowned. I heard from Darius about your strange tsees with your recruits, and to be honest, it disgusts me. Darius couldn't see it, but Colin had to have a frown on his face right about now. He might have be cursing him right now. What are you talking about? What strange tsees? I don't think I need to tell you about them. Anyway, this is over. I'm done with you. I found another manager already. Colin panicked. He heard that. Another manager? Who? Who did you find that's better than me? I already got you brand deal scheduled for all of next week. As Darius kept fondling her breasts, Yuna subtly handed him the phone, as it seemed she wanted me to take over the call. She had already told everything that was on her mind and she simply stay focused with Darius's constant touching. Darius removed one hand from her body and grabbed the phone, removing it from speaker mode as he only wanted Colin about the next part of this conversation. Hello, this is Yuna's manager speaking. Hey, you son of a bitch. Who the hell do you think you are? Stealing an artist from me, you must be crazy. I'll make sure your career is over before it ever starts. No one goes against the great Colin Bennett and comes out unscathed. Darius smiled as he continued fondling Yuna's breasts, who was curtly in another world, as moans kept coming out of her mouth. She wasn't careful anymore as she just let her instincts take over. ANNH, she moaned ever louder. Harder, fondle them harder. Is that her? Just what the fuck are you doing to her? Who the hell are you? Darius smiled as he heard the desperation coming from the other side of the cell phone. It felt good playing with that bastard. He couldn't do anything. Who am I? Can't you tell by the sound of my voice? Darius said as he realized his mistake. Right, I've only been working a day for you. Darius? Is that you? You son of a bitch. Did you just steal Yuna from me? A frown formed on Darius's face. Steal? He looked over at Yuna, who was practically lost in pleasure. Yuna, am I stealing you from Colin? Darius approached the cell phone from her face. No, he's not stealing me from you. I'm the one who asked him to become my manager, and... She continued to moan without the slightest care in the world under Darius's touch. He felt good seeing her react to his every move and... It was as if he controlled her right now. You see. I didn't steal her from you, Darius said as he brought the cell phone closer to his right ear. She's here with me willingly. Colin frowned on the other side of the phone. Are you doing what I think you're doing with her? Haha. What do you think I'm doing? I only brought her home. I didn't do anything. You. Arg, if I ever see you again. He cursed. You're a dead man, I'm telling you. Darius just scoffed. Nothing would happen to him. He knew every little secret about Colin. Darius might have lied about Colin sleeping with his recruits. But there were a lot of dirty things about this man, and if he ever came after him, he would release all of them. Dead man, huh? We'll see about that, Darius said. Oh, and can you send me the contacts of all those people wanting brand deals with her? He clicked his tongue. TSK, feeling arrogant now, huh? It won't be the same thing if we see each other face to face. Darius slowly realized that this discussion wasn't reaching anywhere. So, he decided to put an end to it. However, he had only one thing to do before ding the call. He remembered Colin telling about how he wished he could fuck Yuna in his past life. Well, Darius was about to give him a little taste. He activated the video call and filmed Yuna, who was still moaning under his touch. Her face was bright red, and she couldn't ever look into Darius's face anymore. Darius made sure to only film her face as he didn't want Colin to have any view of her naked body. Look at your phones, Skr. Colin stopped talking. He was probably upping up his phone. Darius waited to hear him shout before ding the call. AHHH. You fucking bastard. Tap. Darius did the call and threw the phone on the right side of her bed. It's done. You're now my very first recruit. Isn't his great? And yes, it's perfect. I'll have all your action from now on. Beep. You completed your first quest, here are your rewards, +5 popularity, skill, finger of pleasure, and Goddess Ariel's shop access. Goddess Ariel's shop? Just what is that? And what does that finger of pleasure thing do? Darius wasn't too sure what all those rewards meant apart from the popularity one. Goddess Ariel's shop. You have access to the personal shop of the Goddess of Love. By using your popularity, you can buy items from her shop. You can find anything you wish inside of it. Finger of pleasure, LVL. A certain energy gets released from the DS of your fingers, making the girls you massage crave you more and more. By leveling up this skill, you can make girls unable to be pleasured without your praise. Darius's eyes read both of the descriptions of his rewards as new questions appeared in his mind. However, he had an idea. He wanted to test out this new skill of his, Finger of Pleasure. Do you want to continue? Fuck yes. Chapter 8, Yuna can sing 2x better. Darius wasn't sure how to use the skill he had just received. He continued the same movements as before, pressing on her back in certain spots. Does it feel better than before? He asked, wondering if there was an actual effect from the skill. It feels good, continued just like that. But does it feel better? She shook her head. I don't know. Darius reread the description of his skill and realized he hadn't fully comprehended what it did. It made girls crave his touch more and more until they couldn't get off of him. It didn't have an instant effect, it would work over time until Yuna came begging for more. Just thinking about it made him smile. He couldn't imagine something like that happening. He had been a nobody in his previous life, and now he had Yuna under his control and management. He also had a skill that could make her tolerate greater by sleeping with him. Realizing there was no need to continue any further, he removed his hands from her back. He didn't want to have sex with her right away. He wanted to sure she would crave his touch more and more before actually doing it. Darius wanted to hear her demand it from him. He moved from the top of her body and finally stopped massaging her. Her eyes fluttered up immediately. What are you doing? Darius sighed as if annoyed. I think I'll be going home tonight. I need to prepare your schedule for the next week. I also need you to sign a contract with me to make things official. She frowned. You're stopping now? She stood up, half naked, clearly unhappy with his decision. You did all that just to stop here? TSK. Come on. You don't want a taste of this? She raised her skirt, flashing her black panty as she slowly started to remove it. Darius hesitated about what to say or do. However, he was dead set on stopping this here. He looked away from her and said, maybe another time, I'm not in the mood right now. Yuna gritted her teeth, her face turning bright red from embarrassment. She turned and jumped on her bed, her plump ass jiggling. Suddenly, a distinct noise echoed in Darius's mind, making him completely forget about Yuna. Beep. You gave a soul massage to Yuna, +5 pitch, +5 vocals, +5 rhythm. Darius couldn't believe the voice in his mind. Yuna had already got much better at singing. And all that had only happened from one single massage. Sure, it was a little more than a normal massage. But wow, this skill of his was totally overpowered. The next thing he needed to do was market Yuna as best as he could. In the beginning, singing wouldn't be the best path for her. She needed to do some modeling for some huge brands until she increased her singing skills. Still, Darius was curious about the effect of those stats. Hey, can you try singing for a bit? Tell me if you notice something different. Darius wasn't going to tell her that he would be the one making her a great singer. That would stay a secret for the time being. It would be better that way long term. Yuna frowned and opened her mouth to complain but closed it right away. She simply nodded and started singing. Her beautiful voice echoed through her apartment, and it was honestly not that bad. It wasn't great, but it wasn't the worst. However, there was clearly some work to do still. She suddenly stopped singing. My voice. It sounds better. But it's not only my voice. I can reach more pitches. What happened? Darius smiled. His skill worked, that was the proof of it. The voice in his mind was actually affecting the world in one way or another. He could only begin to imagine the strgth of the person or the mechanism behind this voice. It's probably a god or something like that. It has to be. Tell me, did you do something to make me improve my skills? Yuna asked as she stared at him, crossing her arms right below her breasts, squeezing them together. Me? How would I have done that? Darius wasn't planning on telling her about his skills. There was no telling what she might do if she knew about them. He preferred using his future knowledge while also using this skill to make her improve faster than in the past. I don't know. It's just weird. I can sing so much better now for some reason. It happened just after your massage too. Darius laughed a little. Haha. I guess I have magic hands. If things continue like this, that could become my nickname. What do you think? She sighed. It could, I guess. Still, this is incredible. I'm like 2 times better than I debuted earlier. Hearing her talk about that, Darius realized they needed to discuss something else too. The fact that she wouldn't be doing music for the first few months of her career. About that, I need to talk about your future a little. Darius paused. Actually, can you put on some clothes before we continue? She giggled. Why? You don't like seeing my naked body? You're weird, you know that, right? Most boys would have begged to have me in their bed, giving myself up to them. But, for some reason, you didn't do that. Either way, she grabbed the black tank top and quickly put it on, covering her body. Here, go ahead. What did you want to tell me? She said. It's about your future. Until you're good off to start singing as your career, you will be modeling for brands. I'm sure you already know that your beauty is not something common in the industry. She clicked her tongue. How much time will it take until I start my musical career? It depends on how much time it'll take for you to progress. But I have a small feeling that it might not be too long. Well, as long as you keep working with me. Is your vocal coach that good? She naively asked. A smile appeared on Darius's face. Oh, he's good. However, his teaching methods are a bit unorthodox. Chapter 9, Modeling for Nike. Already another model? The next day, Darius wasn't with Yuna, as he had told her to rest for the day because he had a lot of places to go. The first one was to get brand deals from all kinds of companies. The easiest way to do that was to pass phone calls to all kinds of companies. However, that wouldn't do it since it could take days before getting an answer from those companies. Unfortunately, Darius hadn't been able to get all the calls from Yuna's debut performance, which made things a lot harder for him. Still, he remembered something from his past life. An unknown brand that had yet to make it big. It was a clothing brand that would literally blow up in the next year without a doubt. It was called Nike. He managed to get a meeting with the one in charge of their marketing last night. As soon as Darius had street Yuna's pictures over, the person on the other side of the phone was completely mind-blown by her beauty and decided to take her. Darius was currently on the way there to decide on her fee for the modeling of the brand. Since it was a new company, it probably wouldn't be much. But once again, it was a long-term investment to make a lot of money down the line. Soon off, Darius arrived at the Nike building and walked right in. He walked over to the counter, and the person there was already aware of his arrival. He was guided to the person taking care of the marketing branch of the company. Mr. Darius has arrived, miss, the secretary said as she opened the door to one of the few offices. Let him in. Darius walked in and was met with a girl wearing a button-down shirt, showing most of her cleavage was sitting behind her desk, piles of paper sheets all over it. She was also wearing the classic tight, black skirt. Her hair was black, and her eyes were blue. To be honest, for someone working in an office, she was beautiful. She wasn't close to Yuna's beauty, but she was still something. You didn't bring Yuna? She asked, noticing that Yuna wasn't with him. Ah, no. She doesn't like the business side of things. She clicked her tongue out of annoyance. I wanted to get started today. Could you call her? And in the meantime, we can talk about her fee. Darius nodded and called her right away, explaining the situation to her. He also told her to wear normal clothes. If she showed up with the same clothes as yesterday, things would be a little awkward. She's coming now. So, what's your price? Considering that Yuna is still completely unknown to the public and that she was only chose for her physical appearance. Let's say $5,000 for the whole shooting. Darius shook his head. That price is too low. $0, and it's a deal. After all, the girl had already told him that the shooting would be running for a few days as they needed more models overall. Usually, Darius would have asked for more. But he knew they didn't have the most funds, so he was nice to her. If only she knew the worth that Yuna would have in the future. How about $8,000? Fine. But let's add another clause. If the advertisement brings you a lot more clicks than you previously thought, you will give her a bonus $7,000. What do you consider a lot more clicks? Oh? Darius rubbed his chin as he knew that this ad would surely blow up with Yuna inside it. This was basically free money that he was making right now. Let's say you make $0 in sales in a week after you release the ad. If that happens, you'll give us that bonus. Deal? The girl thought for a bit as she finally nodded. $0 was a lot of money, and she couldn't see a negative side to taking that deal. She was basically not losing anything from taking it. There was no way her small company would make so much money in a week. So, $8,000 as a fee, and a bonus $7,000 if we make $0 in a week after the release of the ad. Sure, let me write you up that contract. Quickly, she handed him a sheet of paper with all the content they had discussed, and he signed it right away. He had just made Yuna her first $5,000 in a single day. He would only take his cut later on. He wanted to please Yuna as much as possible at the beginning. Great. Let's go and meet the other model before Yuna arrives. 1 hour later, Yuna finally arrived in the building as she saw Darius sitting at a table next to other girls he had never seen before. She frowned for a bit, wondering about their identities. She didn't show it, but she was a little bit jealous that he was so close to those two, especially after what happened yesterday. Hello. She smiled, completely acting as if everything was totally normal. It's nice to meet you too. The two girls stood up as one of them looked extremely beautiful, the other one was also beautiful, but it wasn't the same. The more beautiful out of the two was tall, a 5, and had brown hair with blue eyes. She was also wearing a black training suit that fitted her body, showing her curves perfectly. Yuna, this is Kayla. She's a model just like you, Darius said as he put himself between two of them. Yuna glanced at Kayla and didn't say anything as she just walked past her. She was mad that Darius had got so close to her already. She looked at the other woman, the one who was in charge of the photo shoot, and said, "Can we do this quickly? I have other things to do in the evening." Darius had forgot that her personality wasn't the best because of how close they had got yesterday. But it seemed that she was totally back to normal. However, he ignored the reason why she was acting like this, jealousy. Chapter 10, Opening Yuna's Social Media Accounts. Julia, the person in charge of the marketing for Nike, frowned. She noticed that attitude from Yuna. She hadn't expected a foul mouth from such a cute-looking girl. It simply didn't fit her looks. Still, she didn't say anything since they had already signed a contract for her to be here and to model. Yuna pulled Darius in the corner of the room as she couldn't help but ask him a few questions. What were you doing with that slut over there? Did you see how she was looking at you? She gritted her teeth. If you're already trying to replace me, I don't know what I'll do. Darius smiled at her outburst as he hadn't expected it. She was really jealous of Kayla. They had barely talked for an hour. He also had no plans to bring her into his Talt squad. He hadn't touched her to check her status. But he had a feeling that apart from her beauty, there wasn't much to her. However, Julia was the person who was a lot more interesting. She could be a good recruit in the future. Darius develops his Ugsy. He would have to keep her in the back of his mind for the time being. But who knows what might happen in the future. Either way, Darius had to reassure her as much as he could before she started shouting out of anger. He put both his hands on her shoulder and said, "Don't worry. I'm not replacing you with anyone. You're going to be my main star in the future. Apart from her looks, there's nothing ever appealing about her. You're much more valuable, okay?" Yuna's eyes widened as she hadn't expected that whatsoever. However, it felt good and reassuring to hear such things coming out of Darius. She hadn't thought that she was valued all that much since he had left so abruptly last night. She smiled at him and hugged him tightly. "Thank you." She got closer to him as they hugged and whispered, "If you want, you can come to my house again tonight." Yuna moved away from him with her face completely red from embarrassment. She looked toward the two other girls who had been staring them down. It was now time for the modeling to take place. Within 5 hours, they had put on all kinds of outfits. Without much surprise, Darius stayed inside the room and looked over everything that had happened during those next hours. However, halfway through the photo shoot, Darius had a fun idea, and he could only blame himself that he hadn't done it beforehand. He needed to create Yuna's social media. He quickly opened his phone and created an account for her on Instagram. He called it Yuna Kim and was done with it. The only thing that he needed to do next was put a lot of pictures and cute videos of her backstage. So, for the rest of the photo shoot, Darius took a lot of sneaky pictures of her modeling without Yuna ever knowing about it. She had been thinking that he was taking pictures to admire her later. Still, they were finally done. Darius picked her greatest pictures and videos and posted them on Instagram. He captioned the post, "Behind the scenes of my first brand deal." He closed the app and decided to look at it in a few days. After closing the app, he remembered that there was one thing that was unexpected in this photo shoot. It was the fact that the other model wouldn't leave the room or hide herself. She changed clothes. In fact, she made sure that Darius had a good look at her as she would change right in front of him, bring her ass in his direction every chance she could. Did my looks get that much better? He wasn't used to such situations, and Kayla winked at him. He stood up and walked toward Yuna, who was gritting her teeth. "Did you look at that whore? She was changing in front of you. I told you. She wants your action. I'm warning you. If I find that you did anything with her, I'm firing you." Darius couldn't help but smile as he received those threats. He wouldn't have taken Yuna for the possessive type in the past. But it seemed that she wasn't really up for Darius to have other female talts. However, that wouldn't work out since his skill mainly worked with females. Getting intimate with males was the last thing he wanted to do. He'd die before something like that happened. Still, Darius reassured her as he discreetly grabbed the back of Yuna's ass. "Don't worry. She doesn't look good compared to you." He walked past Yuna and saw Julia, who had a big smile on her face. I have to say, if she had a better personality, she would have the potential to be one of the greats in the industry. However, that foul mouth of hers is the only thing annoying about her. But those pictures make it worth it. Yeah, it's a problem that I'm working on. Will you need her at another time of the week? Julia shook her head. I thought it would have tacked the week. But she was changing so quickly and making the right poses every time. So, no. We're all done with the modeling of my brand. Here's my business card if you ever need her again. Darius handed the business cards he had made right before arriving in her building and called out Yuna to get closer. Yuna. We're leaving. Darius turned as Kayla walked past in front of him. She slid a piece of paper into Darius's right pocket before continuing to walk as if nothing had happened. A frown found its way on Darius's face as he couldn't help but wonder what she had written on that piece of paper. However, he couldn't hop it in front of Yuna since she would become all jealous again. They got out of the office, and Yuna tried to hold Darius's hand while walking. However, Darius moved it away right before she could. TSK. Why are you always refusing my advances? Isn't it obvious that I want you already? Yuna complained as she waited for Darius to answer her. However, that answer never came her way. About your offer from earlier, I'm feeling a bit tired today. I'll go back to my house tonight. Sorry. Yuna clenched her fists out of annoyance. Can't you just give me another massage? Darius appreciated the offer but refused. He wanted to see what was written on that piece of paper. He also wanted Yuna to crave him more, and the best way to do that was to refuse all her propositions. So annoying. If only you knew how many boys would like to be in your position. TSK, if only you weren't so good looking. I'll get going. She slowly walked away as Darius was finally able to pull out that note. Call me. I will prove my worth to you. 3 to 555 to 39, my first booty call. Should I call her? Chapter 11, Goddess Ariel's Shop. So many overpowered items. Darius looked at the phone number and wondered if it was a good idea to contact her. He remembered Yuna's threat from earlier in the day, and to be honest, that model wasn't anything special. The one thing that interested Darius about her was her status. He wanted to see what her stats looked like. That way, he could make a much better decision than now. Wanting to get a better idea, Darius called the number. In fact, he didn't even need to since she was still inside the building. Darius and Yuna had just left, after all. Dring. 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 Hello? Kayla answered. Who is this? It's Darius. She giggled. You already ditched that other girl, huh? Haha, just wait for me. I'll get out of here, and we can enjoy ourselves. Darius couldn't believe how forward she was about sleeping with him. He had never thought something like this would happen to him. He still wasn't anywhere close to being powerful, and he knew it better than anyone. Power was the only thing that mattered in the world. If he was already this successful with the ladies, he couldn't imagine how it'd be later. He would be one of the richest men on earth. I'll wait for you. However, Darius wouldn't have sex with her if he didn't get anything out of it. Sure, she was beautiful, but he would have lots of beautiful women soon off. He wanted to see what her stats looked like. He wanted to know about her potential in different fields, not just modeling. In his past life, he had never heard of a Kayla, but that didn't mean anything. She might be a hidalt he could take under his wing. While he waited for Kayla to come out, Darius remembered a reward he hadn't opted yet, access to Goddess Ariel's shop. How do I opt this thing? Darius asked in his mind. Right as he said those words, a huge blue scroll appeared in front of him. It looked like something straight out of a video game. The only difference was that it was actually real. It showed a huge list of items he had never heard of. In the bottom right corner, it indicated how much popularity he had to buy items. Popularity, 5, it clearly wasn't a lot, as he looked at the prices on the list. There was only one item below the price, and it was on discount. It was basically asking him to buy it. All the other items cost over 0 popularity. However, this one was only 5 popularity. It was perfect for him to buy. Reading the description, a frown appeared on Darius's face. System Awakening, description, by buying this, you will be able to access your very own status, and you will also be able to increase your stats based on the success of the members of your Talt squad. Price, 5 popularity, it would give him a status of his own, with his very own stats. That was something Darius was very curious about, as he hadn't been able to see anything about his own abilities, which was somewhat frustrating over time. Having nothing else to do with the popularity, Darius bought the System Awakening without hesitation. Instantly, another transluct scroll popped up on his right. Darius Coleman, age, height, 6'3", class, manager, networking, marketing, 7, intellects, 4, charm, 6, Unused stat points, 0. Talt Squad, LVL, out of 3 members. Unikim skills, Fingers of Pleasure, LVL, Talt Booster, LVL. Max, Popularity, 0. Darius looked at his stats and was surprised to see that his highest one was Charm. However, he knew that whoever brought him back in time had modified his appearance. So, thinking it through, it wasn't that weird. Most of his stats were okay overall. Apart from the names of the stats, his status looked similar to Eunice. Curious about the rest of the shop items, especially the most expensive ones, Darius scrolled down to the very bottom of the list. There were a lot of items, taking him 30 seconds of scrolling to reach the bottom. His eyes widened at the prices. Time freeze. You can make time freeze for everyone except those you choose. At level, it lasts 1 minute. Price, Popularity, Absolute Hypnosis. You can hypnotize anyone and make them do anything you wish. Price, Popularity. Darius shook his head at how ridiculous these skills sounded. The same question lingered, how was any of this possible? Absolute Hypnosis sounded absolutely impossible. However, everything coming from the voice and these scores was 0% real, which was extremely troubling. Hey, can't you tell me who you are? Darius asked the voice in his mind. The only thing he knew was that the voice was feminine. He had no choice but to dismiss that question as he noticed Kayla walking toward him. She had changed into a long, tight black dress that fit her perfect body, her plump ass and huge breasts being highlighted. Her brown hair blew in the wind, and her blue eyes locked with Darius's. Sorry for taking so long. I had to change. She arrived next to Darius and locked arms with him, pressing her body against his. She was so forward that Darius started to question her intentions. He had just said that his charm was high, but was it that high? He doubted it. Beep. You have made physical contact with Kayla Mitchell. Do you want her to join your Talt squad? You can view her status before she joins your Talt squad to make sure of her Talt. Do you wish to view it? There wasn't the slightest hesitation as Darius answered in his mind. Yes. Kayla Mitchell, age, 9, Talt, B rank, class, model and actress, roleplay, acting, 8, voice, 5, charm, 9, skills, manipulation, LVL. Darius's eyes widened. He saw her status. She had a skill? Was there also someone helping her just like him? Chapter 12, Pink Hair? Questions appeared in Darius's mind, and he had no answer once again. Still, he had be right about one thing. Kayla wasn't there for normal reasons, she must have an idea inside that mind of hers. After all, her skill wasn't a very nice one to others, she was a manipulator. Darius wouldn't ever be surprised if she was manipulating him right now. Still, getting a quick look at her synopsis, Darius had to admit that she a little better than what he had previously thought. Also, if she were on his side, her skill could possibly become an advantage. So, apart from modeling, are you doing anything else? Darius asked as Kayla continued to squeeze her body against him. However, her stats weren't attractive enough for Darius to consider her inside his Talt squad. At least, not right now, there were too few spots and he already had 2 people in mind to complete his Talt squad. She glanced at him with a smile. Oh, I'm also into acting. I've done a few small-time roles here and there I was a child. Darius nodded. So, what kind of show did you want to show me tonight? Darius continued acting like a naive person as he already knew about her intentions. She wanted to sleep with him, and she wanted him to recruit her. At least, that's what he had understood from her actions back in photoshoot. She got closer to Darius's neck as her warm breath weighed against it, and she slowly whispered softly. I'm going to eat you up. She gave Darius a small kiss in the neck, her red lipstick leaving a mark. If you know what I mean. Darius could feel himself getting excited as she continued to whisper, her breath brushing against his neck. He could feel his rod becoming harder as she continued to talk. Still, he controlled himself without much problem. Such things wouldn't be off to entice him. Eat me up, huh? Darius looked at her with a frown. I thought you were looking for a manager. Well, depending on how tonight goes, I might be. My manager is an old and fat person. You see, if I can get someone like you to be my manager, it'd be a lot better. Have you created your IGC? Darius shook his head. No, I've only recruited you directly. This is all new. She frowned. She heard that, putting a more distance between 2 of them. It seemed that the answer didn't exactly please her. She might have thought that Darius was a young and rich manager. But that was the furthest thing from it. He was still at the absolute lowest of the low with only 1 recruit. I see. Kayla subtly had an air of superiority. My manager is Colin Bennett, not sure if you've heard of him. But if you can get more resources than him, call me. I'll join your IGC. Darius laughed. Why was Colin everywhere he went? First, it was with Yuna and now it was with Kayla. Los Angeles really is a smaller place than he thought. Still, she beat down toward him and whispered one last thing. Still, you're pretty cute. If you want, we can go to a hotel and enjoy ourselves. Darius thought about it for a short moment, but he shook his head. There was no point in doing that. The only positive from it would be using fingers of pleasure on her, that way she would crave him for more. However, her tolt wasn't worth all the hassle. Either way, Darius knew 2 future stars that were still completely unknown and he wanted to recruit them as fast as possible. No. I'm fine. She scoffed. You're arrogant too, huh? Don't think you're special or anything. You're just a nobody with a nice body, alright? Nobody? We'll see about that. You come begging at me to take you in my Ugsy. Stay with that Colin Bnit. Haha. I don't really give a shit. Just don't come back. I make it big. Darius already knew that he would become a powerhouse in a few months at the very least. It was only a matter of time until Kayla came knocking on his door again, and he would thoroughly humiliate her. He could already imagine the look on her face. If only I could make the time speed up. Nevertheless, he discarded those thoughts as Kayla slowly started walking away from him, cursing at him as she walked away. Make it big? She laughed. That girl has no tault, you'll never make it big. She called a cab and, a few seconds later, she was gone, leaving Darius all alone for tonight. It seemed he wouldn't be getting action tonight, at least, that's what he thought until he saw someone on the other side of the room tearing a video game cafe. She wore a small cap to hide her face, but Darius recognized her right away. Her appearance was quite unique after all. She had long pink hair, tied up in a ponytail. Still, there was one thing about her appearance that seemed different compared to what he remembered. The fact that she was wearing a huge hoodie, and her belly was also huge. She was overweight. Still, there was no mistake. It was indeed her. It was Avery Brighton. The next big star of Twitchy, a streaming platform. She was one of the people that he had wanted to recruit into his Talt squad. Her profession was completely different from what Darius would usually go for. But the type of streams she would perform made her a perfect fit. She was a part-time streamer. Well, right now she was. In the future, she would form an empire under her as everyone would give her thousands for a picture with her. Still, she wouldn't become a normal Twitchy streamer. She would be the one starting a TRD that would change the world for a long time, hot tub streams. That was what would make her known. After all, most of her fans were horny teachers trying to get a quick peek at her naked body. She was the perfect recruit for Darius's skill. That's why seeing that she was fat. A frown appeared on Darius's face. Her puzzle was still the same, she would need to lose a lot of fat for it to work though. Maybe with my Tolt booster, I'll be able to fix that. Nevertheless, he crossed the street and entered the video game cafe, staying a few steps behind her. What better way to get to know each other than to play video games together? Chapter 13, A New Quest. Darius entered the video game cafe and spotted Avery instantly. She was already talking with the person at the counter about buying a playing spot for the night. The place was also massive. On Darius's right, there were rows of PCs lined up with neon lights everywhere. It truly looked like a place where all the gaming nerds would group up to play with each other. In fact, it was bustling with all kinds of people, which was the last thing that Darius had expected. To be honest, he didn't think that it would be a popular place, but he was wrong from the looks of it. Still, it was interesting to watch the past Avery as Darius had only seen her through her streams. She was a lot different from what he remembered. Her body was slim. She didn't have ABS. The only thing that made her similar was her eye-catching hair. However, it wasn't that weird since her career as a streamer would only start in 3 years. She must have realized that she was getting fat and worked out to remove all of it. Darius smiled, thinking about it. You're really lucky to meet me today. I'm going to make you all fit again. Darius didn't know if his skill had that power, and honestly, he didn't want to have sex with an overweight person. So, he hoped that the changes would happen very fast. Beep. Tolt Booster can make people more beautiful through their charm stat. However, it takes a lot of effort, especially with overweight people. Still, there is an item in Goddess Ariel's shop that makes it possible. It's called Fat Loss. It's only 50 popularity, only. Darius practically shouted in his mind. He had only ever managed to get 5 popularity from his first quest, and he would have lost his life if he failed. He couldn't have begun to imagine what a quest for 50 popularity would be like. He could already tell that it would be completely insane. You have received a new quest, on D quest, get a number, description, get for Avery's phone number, reward, 5 popularity, in case of failure, 5 charm. Darius frowned. He saw the amount of popularity give for such an easy quest. Avery would surely give him her number since she was so fat, and she clearly never had action before in her life. However, he quickly understood why he was give 5 popularity for such a simple quest. It was because there weren't any other rewards added to it. Also, the punishment this time wasn't as bad as it would only cost him 5 charm if he were to fail. Though, it's not like I'll fail. Darius could only giggle he saw the wink that the girl at the counter gave him. The girl at the counter was feeling him. Hey, I'm looking for a spot to play. She grinned. Of course. Shouldn't I be? She beat over the counter and reached Darius's ear. For a cutie like you. It's free. She winked at Darius again and started walking away from the counter, going toward a place where there was no one else playing. Darius frowned. His plan was to get placed right beside Avery. It would make things a lot easier. Before reaching his playing station, Darius tapped her shoulder. Sorry, would it be possible to be seated next to the girl with pink hair? Why would you want to be seated next to such a fat overweight person? She frowned. Just follow, I'll bring you to a more quiet place. Darius shook his head. I'm not interested. Just place me next to her. She clicked her tongue. TSK. Alright your loss. The girl guided him toward the seat right next to Avery and left right away with a frown. She couldn't believe that she had lost against an overweight person. Sitting down, Avery glanced at him for a short moment, and Darius took his opportunity right away. Hello. Darius mustered the best possible smile. However, Avery just frowned and looked away from him. It seemed it wouldn't be as easy as he thought. Darius moved his mouse a little on the PC and opened the first game he saw, League of Dragons. He remembered it as being some sort of new MOBA, and it became one of the biggest games in the world in a few years. He glanced at her skirt, and she was also playing the same game. Do you want to play a game together? Avery frowned again, clearly not understanding why Darius wanted to talk to her that much. It was honestly quite strange. You want to play with me? Darius shrugged. Isn't it a lot more fun to play with others? Avery quickly agreed and waited for Darius to opt the game. There was just one small problem about all this. It was Darius's first time playing League of Dragons. He had no idea how it worked, and it seemed quite confusing for new players. Avery would surely find things weird. She saw that he was level. You've never played before? She asked. Darius nodded as he looked at her body again. Damn, she didn't look anything like before. It was mind-blowing. Darius had no idea how it was ever possible for such a creature to turn into such a beauty. I've never played. Is that a problem? No. Just play support, and I'll help you. Darius nodded and selected the support role in the game. However, he wasn't paying attention to the game. He just wanted her number as fast as possible. Wanting to know more about her talt and her stats, Darius barely touched her arm while apologizing as if it had been a mistake. Beep. You have made physical contact with the future Twitchy top star, Avery. Do you want her to join your talt squad? No. Not yet. Well, not until she loses that fat. Do you want to see her status? Yes. As all this happened inside his mind, the game launched. However, Darius wasn't paying the slightest attention to the game. Avery Brighton, age, 8, talt, SS rank, class, streamer, confids, video game skills, entertaining, 5, charm, skills, none. Holy fuck, there's going to be a lot of work with that one. Chapter 14, Yuna can't spend a night without Darius. After looking at her stats, Darius realized that she had a lot of talt, but it was very well hid behind a lot of things. It would certainly take some time for her to reach her full potential. Well, normally, it would have taken a long time. However, with the help of the fat loss pill, she would become a lot more beautiful overnight. Darius would also use talt booster on her, which would make her talt greater in an instant. He also knew about the hot tub stream TRD, which would help her reach the very pinnacle of the streaming industry. Still, now wasn't the time to think about this as they played their first game of League of Dragons. A few minutes passed by, and it finally did. They had utterly lost. Darius just wasn't able to comprehend anything about the game. Avery had also been using vocabulary that he had never heard in the past, like lanes, minions, river, and jungle. It was all very confusing for a new player like him. Still, that mattered. They had gotten more comfortable with each other over the course of the game. Do you want to do another one? She asked. Darius shook his head. It's getting late. You can give me your number, and we could meet up to play another time. What do you say? She shrugged. Sure. Darius handed her his phone, and she typed it right in. He had completed the quest with ease. After all, it had been quite easy. However, he hadn't really managed to charm her over the short period of time they SPT with one another. For some reason, she hadn't really looked interested in Darius whatsoever. Beep. You have completed the NT quest. +5 popularity. Darius didn't react he received the reward. He was slowly getting used to this thing. Instead, his mind was on something else completely different. Well, maybe she has a boyfriend, who knows. Still, her having a boyfriend wouldn't matter. She started getting a taste of his fingers of pleasure. She would leave him at one point or another, especially she realized the benefits that Darius could give her. Darius headed out and looked at the time. It was still quite early. It was only PM, which was basically the perfect time to call Yuna, and that's exactly what he did. Dring. It took not one ring for her to answer the phone. Darius? She asked right away. She was breathing heavily. It was strange. And considering the speed at which she had answered, her phone had probably been in her hands. Yes. Are you okay? Why yes, of course. Why are you calling me so late at night? Well, I was thinking of sleeping at your place after all. What do you say? All right now. She seemed panicked from the tone of her voice. If you don't want to, it's fine. I'll just stay at my place. Darius didn't mention that he was still outside, as it would make her ever more jealous than earlier. No. She shouted. Why, you can come to my place. Come right away. I need one of your massages. Something is wrong with my body. It's been like that ever since you gave me a massage. Darius smiled. It seemed fingers of pleasure really had an effect on others, as he had barely used it on her last time, and she was already asking for more. He couldn't have begun to imagine how strong the effects would be once he managed to level the skill. A massage? I don't know. I'm not really in the mood for it. Her breathing got ever more heavy as Darius heard it, through the phone. Please, I'll do anything. Anything? A smile formed on Darius's face. That was something he liked to hear. 30 minutes later, Darius knocked on the door, and it was opened instantly. The first thing he saw opening the door was Yuna's red face and her chest heaving up and down. Her breasts were jiggling right as that happened. She was barely wearing anything. She had a shirt on that was see-through. It was a shirt that resembled those that people would wear as pajamas. And she only had a red panty down there. Finally. Her breathing was rugged, the words barely coming out of her mouth. Come in. She grabbed his hand and pulled onto him, leading him into her room. Darius glanced at her bed, and it was clear that she had tried to do something about it, as all the bed sheets were messed up. Did she try to masturbate and it didn't work? Is that why she's like this? That was Darius's guess. He looked at her appearance. Everything pointed in that direction. However, he didn't comment on it. It was a lot funnier like this. The effects of fingers of pleasure were higher than he had ever expected, and that was only level. He made a note in his mind that he would have to level up that skill as fast as possible. Its potential was incredible. She kept dragging him as she jumped on the bed, her plump ass bouncing and jiggling again. Darius stared at him and started getting hard. Come on. Massage me. Darius smiled. He wanted to keep teasing her. It was just so much fun to see Yuna, the arrogant pop star, acting like this with him. Never in a million years would he have thought something like this would have happened. He would have cursed whoever had told him this in the past. To think her arrogant self would practically beg Darius to give her a massage. With a grin, he looked at her back and said, What if I don't? I'll fire you. Oh, are you now? I go ahead. I won't massage you. Darius wanted to see where he could push her reactions. She clicked her tongue. Come on, just do it. I promise I'll do anything you want after. Anything? Darius repeated, just to make sure. Yes, anything. Now, do it. Start rubbing my back. Sure. Darius got on top of her and started massaging her back. However, Yuna shook her head out of annoyance. Lower. Go lower just like before. Chapter 15, shaking from one touch of his fingers. Darius takes control. Darius, with absolute control, wait lower, his hands on her bare ass since she didn't have a skirt this time. She only wore a panty that showcased her beautiful bottom. Darius grabbed it tightly and started rubbing it. Almost instantly, Yuna moaned. ANNH. Darius noticed that she had BC, probably because she had been missing him and couldn't pleasure herself alone anymore. At least, that's what he thought based on the state of her room. Massaging her ass was fun, but today Darius wanted to take things a step further. He didn't want to go all the way just yet, but he aimed to reach another level of intimacy with her. This way, she would also get more talented. It was a win-win situation. She would get pleasure, Darius would get pleasure, and she would also improve her singing. There wasn't anything better than this. That's why he moved one of his hands closer to her pussy, gently touching it. Holy shit, she's wet already. Darius didn't need to see anything, her panties were drenched. She was excited on a whole other level than he had previously thought. For how long had she been trying to masturbate? Darius couldn't believe it as he started slowly rubbing her pussy. Her moans grew more frit. ANNH. Yes. She screamed, eyes closed from the pleasure. Darius continued for a few more seconds, and her body started shaking as if something was taking control. She was having her biggest orgasm yet. Her body shook against the bed as her ass moved up and down. However, while she shook, Darius continued to rub her pussy. It was amusing to see her at his complete mercy. Do you want me to continue? I'll take that as a yes. Darius slid his hand inside her panty, rubbing directly against her skin. He didn't insert any fingers yet, imagining how intense her orgasm would be. He did. Murmurs escaped her mouth as her shaking finally stopped. Her whole body seemed to stop working as she lay completely down on the bed, looking almost unconscious from the intensity of her orgasm. However, that wasn't the case. She just couldn't feel her legs anymore, and that was without Darius fucking her. He had just gently rubbed her vagina. The more time Darius SPT with her, the more he thought Yuna might never have had any express before. It had never crossed his mind considering her beauty, but Yuna might actually be a virgin. Still, now wasn't the time to ask as she weakly muttered something, her face pressed against the bed. Stop. Darius smiled and continued what he was doing. Stop. Please. But you were the one asking for it earlier. I know. But. She turned tears in her eyes. It's too much. I can't feel my legs anymore. Darius shrugged. We can take a break. He moved away from the bed, slapping her ass on the way out. We'll continue the massage in 5 minutes. This time, you'll face me. Her moan from the slap made Darius laugh. She nodded weakly. Was I really that good in bed in the past? Darius hadn't realized it before. He had never made a girl react this way just with his fingers. Using his rod, nothing like this had happened. It was strange. Still, he shook his head, looking at Yuna's state. Darius didn't know if she could ever understand him at this point, but one thing was sure, Yuna was now fully his. No one else would ever lay a hand on her. Darius would sure that. Damn. This life is so much better than my previous one. Girls were now asking him to sleep with them. It was a great feeling, something any man wished for. The 5 minutes passed quickly, and Yuna was still in the same state. She lay on the bed. Darius would have to turn her He grabbed her the ass, and her body shook instantly, still very sensitive to his touch. However, she didn't moan, so she was doing a bit better. Facing him, Darius observed her perfect figure for a few more seconds, and started to get into it. Remove your shirt, he ordered. Her shirt would just get in the way later on. Also, he wanted to see her naked body again. Touching her bare tits would be a nice sensation after all. Yuna gulped, looking at Darius who was looking down on her. She nodded and slowly removed it. See, can you remove yours? Darius smiled. Isn't his a massage? Why do you want to see my body? Alright. This is only a massage. It's only me that's receiving it. So, it makes that I'm the only one removing my clothes. Exactly. It is perfectly normal for your manager to do this. I'm simply releasing the stiffness from your body. She nodded. True. Darius smiled at her response. She was completely under his control now, agreeing to everything he said. He couldn't believe it and laughed. Haha. You're so cute. She blushed. Do you want me to massage you down there? He pointed at her pussy. Or up here? He pointed at her huge tits. She stayed still for a moment, thinking. Why not both? Sure, that can work. I have 2 hands, after all. He smirked. Can you remove your panty? My panty? Wouldn't that make me completely naked? Darius sighed. This is only a massage, remember. It will just make things easier for me. She nodded again. Right. You're right. She grabbed her panty and started removing it. Here, let me help you with that. Darius grabbed her panty and ripped it apart, throwing it on the floor beside her. A gulp was the only sound that came from Yuna as she felt Darius's lustful look on her body. This is completely normal, she thought in the back of her mind, trying to convince herself that everything that was happening made sense. Chapter 16, Closing the Deal with Yuna. Darius didn't waste any time as he fondled one of the breasts, his hand barely able to hold it because of its size. And with his other hand, he was rubbing her pussy, pleasuring her. It didn't take much to get a reaction out of her since she was already so seductive. Within a few seconds, the moans continued to escape her mouth. Surprisingly, Darius heard a distinct noise inside his mind. Beep. You have got more intimate with Yuna, you made her remove her clothes in front of you, and you rubbed her pussy, her aptitudes greatly increase, +8 voice, +8 rhythm, +5 charm, this time another set of stats improved as her charm also improved. Darius couldn't imagine what she would look like in the future. Her charm would be at an all-time high. However, There was one thing that annoyed him. The fact that he hadn't received any stats from his actions. It seemed only the person in his Talt squad would improve while he would stay the same. It wasn't that bad, considering that he was their manager. But still, he was a little biased of them. Can't you at least give me a skill? Beep. New quest, have sex with Yuna within the next 5 minutes, rewards, popularity, new hit skill, failure, erectile dysfunction. It seemed someone had been listening in as he received a new quest right away within a second. After reading the rewards and the punishment, he realized that he had no choice but to do it. He didn't want his rod to go all soft on him. His tire skill dipped it on it. Also, the rewards were amazing, as he would acquire a new skill and popularity. This meant that he would have a total of 0 popularity, and he would be able to buy the fat loss pill for Avery. Now, the only thing that would make things complicated was giving the pill to Avery. After all, who would ever believe that such a thing exists in the real world? A pill that could make you slim just by taking it. Sounds too good to be true. Well, it is. But Darius could make unbelievable things happen with the help of the voice in his head and his system. Still, he shook his head, dismissing his thoughts as he only had 5 minutes to have sex with her. It was a lot of time, but Darius didn't want to risk it. He hadn't wanted to seal the deal with Yuna right away, but it seemed the system in his mind was impatient. So, he simply listened to their wishes. That was the least that he could do. After 1 minute of massaging and teasing, it was now time to propose something else to Yuna. Yuna. Yes. Her eyes fluttered up. What do you think about a massage but inside you? A massage inside me? That's a thing? Yes, I only need to insert something inside you, and I promise you, it'll make you feel better. From everything that she was saying to the way she was reacting, it was getting clearer and clearer that she had no express with the opposite gender or any knowledge about sex whatsoever. It was surprising, but Darius only liked it more. He would be able to show her everything he wants without the slightest problem. He would be able to tell her that it's normal, and she wouldn't know anything about it. What do you need to put inside me? Oh, don't worry. It's nothing too big, Darius smirked, as he hadn't ever checked the size of his rod in his timeline. If things were the same as in the past, he shouldn't have too big of one, of 5 inches, which was basically average. Sure, we can try it. Perfect, Darius replied. For this type of massage, I also need to remove some of my clothes. She nodded, only listening to Darius's words as she stared at him removing his pants. He kept his shirt on, but his bottom half was completely gone. His rod was rock hard as he stared at her body. Darius looked down and smiled, celebrating in his mind. The person who had brought him back in time hadn't forgot about this detail. It had made his dick much bigger. From what he could tell, it was a 7 or 8 inches. The width of it was also quite massive. Is that what you need to insert down there? She kept stuttering as she admired it. You call that small? It's massive. Darius thanked her in his mind. Right, well its size changed from the looks of it. It's just a bit bigger than before. Don't worry too much about it. Is it your first time inserting something in your pussy? Why yes. Will it hurt? Just a bit. Don't worry, I'll be as gentle as possible. Yuna nodded very slowly, up and down. Darius approached his rod from her pussy, which was still dripping wet from all the foreplay he had done on her. And it was now time to finally pass another step in their relationship. They were about to reach the highest level of intimacy possible, or at least that's what Darius thought. He gently rubbed it against her pussy, slowly pushing it inside as slowly as possible. He knew that this was her first time, which meant that there might be blood coming from her pussy, especially with his size. It was practically sure. Is it fully in? She barely managed to say as her face was squinting from the pain she felt down there. However, Darius wasn't ever close to being fully inside. Just halfway there, don't worry. Do you want me to go inside all in one go? Yuna hesitated as she was already hurting so much from half of Darius's rod. If he were to tear all of it right away, she would surely hurt like crazy. However, it would only hurt for a short lapse of time, which is why she weakly nodded her head. Sure. Go ahead. Darius didn't need to be give permission twice as he shrugged, grabbed her hips tightly, and rammed his dick all the way into her womb. Chapter 17, A New Skill, Delicious Milk. She screamed out of pleasure while her face was in pain. There was a mix of pain and pleasure on her face, which was a fun sight for Darius. He looked down at her pussy, and there was some blood coming out of it, tainting the bed sheets. Still, Yuna didn't look too sad as she kept moaning louder and louder. Are you okay? Fuck yes. Do it again. Darius's eyes widened. He was sure that he would need to take a break after doing that, but it seemed Yuna was more of a slut than he thought. She was just moaning over and over again, grabbing onto the bedsheets as hard as she could, her feet curling up from the pleasure. It was her first time, and she was already enjoying it that much. Darius was doing most of the job as she was laid there, enjoying all his moves. Darius continued to move in and out of her womb. He looked at Yuna's face, who subtly opened her eyes and held her arms out forward. She seemed to be asking for something, but Darius had no idea what it was. Hug me. Please. Darius grabbed her arms and hugged her as he continued to fuck her as hard as possible. Their faces were only a few centimeters from one another as they stared at each other, their hot breath brushing against both of their faces. Yuna grabbed him by his neck and lifted her upper body, literally kissing Darius on his neck. She whispered in his right ear. Kiss me. Touch me. Fuck me. Those words woke up a different beast in Darius's body as he started going twice as hard. He moved backward, removed his dick from inside her, and put her on her back. Move your ass up, and arch your back. Darius wasn't asking for her opinion anymore. He just wanted to fuck Yuna brainless. After what he was about to do to her, she would only be able to go back to him in the future. Her body, her pussy, her being would belong to him without a doubt. She would be his future star, the one who would make him rich and powerful. Yuna listened to his words as she got on her knees and arched her back. Like this? She looked back, wondering if she was doing a good job. Not bad. Darius got behind her and rammed his dick inside her again. Yuna had yet again another orgasm. Pain was no longer a problem as only pleasure took over. Should I slap her ass? Darius thought, unsure if she would like it or not. Well, only one way to find out. Right as he fully teared his dick, he slapped her ass as hard as he could, leaving a red mark of his palm on it. That hurts. It does? Darius replied with a smirk. Of course, he knew that it would hurt, but he couldn't care less. In fact, he did it again. He slapped her other ass cheek this time. Stop, it hurts. Your face isn't saying the same thing, haha. She was completely enjoying it as moans would come out of her mouth every time he would smack her ass. That's not true. I don't like this. He smacked it again. She moaned again. It seemed that Yuna might have some BDSM tsies. She seemed to like getting hit and being dominated by another person. Well, Darius noted that in the back of his mind. Her personality in bed was the complete opposite of the one outside of it. In real life, she would act all arrogant and confident, but as soon as Darius rammed his dick inside, she listened to his every word, executing all of his orders. After a few more seconds, Darius could feel himself on the verge of coming. I'm about to come. He shouted. Do whatever you want. She didn't care if he were to come inside her. She was completely gone. Her instincts had taken control of her body for sure. Darius just smirked as he gave her one final push as thick liquid came out of his piss and filled her pussy to the brim. He removed his rod from her vagina, the cum started dripping on the bed sheets. Quest, have sex with Yuna is completed, plus popularity, hit skill gained, delicious milk, your cum has a sweet taste, and once a girl tastes she will keep wanting more of it. Also, drinking your cum will make the members of your Tolt squad grow ev faster. You had sex with Yuna. You have got ev more intimate, plus in all stats. Reading the description of the skill, Darius realized that he had just lost some resources to make Yuna ev more Tolted. He looked at her and quickly said. Don't let all this go to waste. Drink it. I promise you, it'll make you feel better. Why you want me to drink what's dripping from my pussy? Yes. She gulped with a shy nod. She brought her hand closer to her pussy and teared some of her fingers inside it. She had some of Darius's milk on her fingers as she put her hand in her mouth, licking each of her fingers. What's this liquid? She smiled with her mouth full of Darius's thick milk. She was on her knees, her tits jiggling as a bit of cum ran down her cheeks. It tastes so good. She licked the bed sheets as fast as she could while Darius just smiled at her. She was desperate for it. Yuna wanted it more than anything in the world. Still, this was great. Yuna had once again got much more Tolted, and all that happened in less than 2 days. It wouldn't have take that much longer for her to reach her potential as a singer. I told you. Drinking this will make you feel much better. Thank you. You really are generous with me. Don't worry, I'm doing this for the both of us. Yuna drank your cum. Delicious milk activates, +3 charm. Yuna didn't know about his skill, but she would slowly understand that the more she had sex with Darius, the more Tolted she would become. What was the point of a vocal coach she had Darius? The answer to that question is simple. Darius glanced at Yuna's status with a smile. Everything had been worth it. Her stats had pretty much quadrupled since he had recruited her. Yuna Kim, age, 8, Talt, SSS rank, class, singer, vocals, 33, pitch, rhythm, 8, charm, 47, skills, non-chapter 18, Avery is rich. Darius visits her mansion. Yawning, Yuna's eyes fluttered up after a restful night of sleep. She expected to find Darius lying beside her, especially considering the intense night they had just shared. But he was already gone. She frowned. TSK. Why does he always leave without saying goodbye? Still, last night was fun. We could have done it again if he didn't leave. At the same time, on the other side of Los Angeles, why did she make me come this far? Darius muttered as he stepped out of the cab after a 2-hour drive. He was on his way to meet Avery again. He had called her first thing in the morning, eager to give her the fat loss pill and see if she could join his Talt squad. From the looks of it, Avery lived on the affluent side of the city. The neighborhood was filled with mansions, each more grandiose than the last. Darius couldn't help but marvel at the appulse of him, sprawling guards, security gates, and garages big enough to hold a fleet of cars. It was clear that everyone here was extremely wealthy, which meant Avery's family likely was too. Still, I have no clue why she invited me to her house. We could have just met up at a coffee shop. This is weird, Darius thought, recalling their brief conversation. She had accepted his request to meet without hesitation, not ever asking why. He approached a silver gate and looked up at the massive mansion behind it. His first thought was, did she play a prank on me? Well, he would find out soon off as he rang the doorbell. Dring. Property of the Brightons. How can we help you? Came a voice through the intercom. It didn't sound like Avery's, but the surname matched. Hello, I'm here to meet Avery. Would that be possible? Darius asked. Avery? The voice repeated, followed by murmurs as the person seemed to be conversing with someone else. Since does she have a friend besides her boyfriend? Darius frowned. So, I was right. She does have a boyfriend, huh? Still, something else was on his mind. Brighton. He had never made the connection in his past life, but there was a prominent figure in the entertainment industry with that surname, a Jewish director who had won an Oscar. What was his name again? Albert Brighton? Wait a moment, we will ask Avery about receiving a visitor. We haven't heard anything about it. After a few moments, the voice returned. Come in. Beep. The gates swung up, and Darius walked through, heading toward the mansion. The guards were immaculate, with more flowers than he had ever seen in his life. He was intrigued by the partial connections he could make here. As he reached for the door handle, it opened to reveal two maids, dressed in classic uniforms that accentuated their ample curves. Hello, sir. They said in unison, bowing and revealing their cleavage. Darius was taken aback by their forwardness. Miss Avery is waiting for you in the back. Thank you. Could you guide me there? Darius asked. The maids turned and led the way, their skirts swaying with each step. Darius couldn't help but overhear their conversation as they walked. How did Miss Avery get another handsome man to come here? One maid whispered. TSK. What do you think? Her family. He's probably here for her money like that other guy, the other replied. Right, well if he's anything like Avery's boyfriend, we can also have sex with him without the lady knowing about it. Darius's eyes widened at their bluntness. It seemed these maids were not just eye candy, they had their own schemes. Useful information, indeed. After a short walk, they arrived at the backyard. Avery was lounging by the pool in a bikini, her body glistening in the sun. Darius had to suppress a look of disgust as he couldn't wait for her transformation. That fat appearance was the last thing that he wanted to look at right now. Hey, Avery. Darius called out, putting on a friendly smile. Avery looked up, a bit surprised but smiled back. Darius. You made it. Come, sit with me. He walked over and took a seat beside her. Thanks for inviting me. Your place is incredible. Yeah, it's pretty nice, Avery replied, looking a bit self-conscious. So, what did you want to talk about? Darius took a deep breath. Well, I have some sort of proposition for you. But it would be a bit better if we could talk alone. Avery indicated for the two maids to leave her alone and to go back inside the house. But what if something happens? TSK, just leave the two of us alone. The two maids nodded before returning inside the mansion. Go ahead. Well, I think I should introduce myself a little better to start things off. Darius coughed once. My name is Darius and I'm a rookie manager that is trying to recruit partial new stars into my agency. I met you. I was sure that you had a hid Talt, which is why I decided to come here. She blushed slightly. Hid Talt? Me? Darius nodded. You might not see it right now. But your partial is practically limitless give the right resources. She frowned. And what would I be doing with that partial of mine? Avery clearly didn't believe a single word coming out of Darius's mouth, but that was only for the best as her reaction later would be that much better. Becoming a streamer on Twitchy. Her eyes widened. How did you know that I'd be streaming? Are you a pervert? Darius almost felt insulted to be called a pervert. If he were to be one, he wouldn't be coming after the fat streamer, he would go after the pretty ones. A little bit of commons please. Still, he shook his head as he had no idea that she had already started streaming. What sort of streams are you doing right now? The usual, just playing games in front of the 1 or 2 people who watch me. Right, so she hasn't started the TRD that would make her blow up. Perfect. You see, I have a concept in mind that could make you the biggest star of Twitch's industry. However, to get there, you would have to take this. Darius smiled at her as he pulled out the fat loss pill from his pockets. Chapter 19, Avery takes the fat loss pill. And what is that? Avery asked, clearly wondering what sort of pill Darius had just pulled out from his pocket. A pill that can make you lose all the fat from your body. It will give you the greatest possible body for you. Avery just laughed in his face. Do you try to do this scam oft? Because it's probably the worst one I've heard in years. She couldn't believe that Darius had said something like this. Did he think that she was dumb or what? Who would believe that such a pill would ever exist? Darius knew that he needed to convince her. After all, he would have had the same reaction as her. If such a pill could really do things like that, wouldn't it be on the medical market? Why do you, a rookie manager, have something like this? Darius gritted his teeth. He wasn't sure how to respond to that. She was right, it didn't make sense. He also couldn't tell her about his return to the past. She would simply think of him as someone crazy. Just try it. The worst thing that can happen is that I'm scamming you. Avery frowned. I don't need to give you anything in exchange for it. Well, I told you. I see partial in you. So, if it works, you'll have to agree to join my UGC, and you'll also have to agree to change the content that you are currently streaming. Avery shrugged and took the pill from his hands. She didn't know one bit that it would do anything, so she didn't take a lot of risks here. The worst thing that could happen is that she would join his UGC. She truly wasn't losing much. Still, right before taking it, she looked at him dead in the eyes. If this is some sort of drug, you'll regret it. My father and my mother will come after you, and you will never be able to make a name for yourself. Darius nodded without any hesitation. His parts would love him. By giving this pill, he would have made his daughter beautiful. Who wouldn't like that? Seeing that Darius was so confident about this mysterious pill, she ate it with a bit of water that was on her right. She took the pill, and nothing happened for a few seconds. She laughed. How long is it supposed to take for it to come into effect? Shouldn't be long. Darius still wasn't panicking. The system had never tricked him once in his life, and he didn't believe that it was about to trick him right now, not after everything that had happened in the last few days. There was just one thing on Darius's mind. And it was that he would have to explain her change to her parts and maids. They were bound to completely freak out they saw her again. Avery cited. Seems like you were trying a scam. Look, I'm still as fat as before. She looked down at her arm, which was not without an ounce of fat. Wait. What? Avery stood up. However, she didn't struggle like she usually would. She just ran inside the mansion and headed toward the closest mirror inside. Darius followed her without wasting any time and ran past the 2 maids. The 2 maids looked confused, seeing someone with pink running the house. At first, they thought it was Avery, but they realized that it was impossible. Avery wasn't anywhere as good looking as this. Avery quickly arrived in front of a mirror and started touching her body. Her bikini was still fitting on her body because she had only lost fat in the right places. Her breasts and her ass were still big and jiggly, just like before. That fat loss pill was truly a miracle. There was no doubt about it. Darius still had 50 popularity, too. He would be able to buy another overpowered item soon off. She grabbed her face and tried to pull her skin, but there was no face fat. She only pulled skin. How is this possible? What did you just give me? The 2 maids who were right behind Darius also panicked they saw Avery's new body. Miss Avery, is that really you? Did something happen back there? I don't know. This is impossible. My body. It's perfect, just look at it. The maids stared at it and gritted their teeth. She looked better than them now. Yes, you look great, miss. But how did you lose weight that fast? You were with this mysterious for less than 5 minutes. He gave me something, and it made me like this. I don't know. I thought he was scamming me, but it's true. My body really did change like he did. She turned to look toward Darius, walking toward him. What did you give me back there? Tell me. I want to see it again. Darius looked a bit embarrassed. Well, it was the only pill that I had. I can't give it to you again. It was a one-time thing. Still, it worked just like I said it would, right? Yes, it did. But what was that pill? Where did it come from? Darius couldn't tell her that it came from some goddess's shop. She would just laugh in his face. He also didn't want to reveal his powers as it would just make things more complicated. Everyone of the world would learn about his existence, and it wouldn't only attract good people. People with bad intentions were sure to come for him in that case. I don't know. Look, it worked, didn't it? And you remember what you promised, right? She nodded with a frown. I do, and I'll respect it. Just give me a contract, and I'll sign it. Creak. The front door opened, revealing an even bigger chested woman. Avery? Is that really you? She gasped. What happened to your body? What's this about signing a contract? Who did you make a deal with? Mom, I can explain everything. Chapter 20, putting sunscreen on Avery's mom back. Who is this? Where did you meet this man? Her mom asked right away, not letting Avery utter another word. I met him at a video game cafe. He asked me to meet today, so I accepted. She shook her head. And you brought him here of all places. Why are you so naive after all this time? Was he the one who made you like this? Her eyes drifted onto Darius, who hadn't moved a muscle. She was clearly unhappy with the situation, as if she was happy with what had just happened with her daughter. What did you do to make her like this? She frowned heavily. I just gave her a little something, nothing to worry about. She crossed her arms right under her breasts, making them even bigger. She was wearing a long, tight dress. So, her perky nipples showed through the dress. It was quite something to look at as Darius's eyes drifted toward it for a short moment. Nothing to worry about? You just gave her something that made her lose all her fat, and you don't know what it is? Do you understand how dangerous this whole thing is? Darius shrugged. There was no danger. He was the one who had just made her a lot more healthier. So, why was she shouting instead of thanking him? What kind of contract did you ask her to sign? Nothing much. I only recruited her into my UGC. What's the name of it? She replied instantly. Darius rubbed his chin. He hadn't thought about it just yet. After all, this UGC of his was basically him and Yuna, there was no one else inside it. Still, he didn't want to appear like an idiot, so he thought of a name on the spot. He thought of all the things he had managed to gather over the past few days and found the name almost instantly. It's called 12th World. Darius didn't think the name was terrible. It was actually not too bad, considering the amount of time he had spent thinking about it. 12th World? Never heard of it. Darius was about to say that he only created it 2 days ago. But before he could, Avery interfered between the two of them. Mom, can you stop attacking him? He didn't do anything wrong. I also accepted. I thought it was a scam, but look at my body. It's perfect. Her mother slowly patted her head as Avery weighed into her arms. I know, cutie. Still, this is weird. What if he gave you something bad? Avery shook her head. I feel good, Mom, don't worry. You should be thanking him for helping me. He also decided to help me in my streaming career. He said that I have a talt. A smile crept up on Darius's face. Avery was defting him. It was perfect? That was all he could ask for. After all, most mothers' weakest point was their daughter. So, if Avery was on his side, her mother would also be on his side. That was just how things were. TSK, fine. Still, he'll stay here until your father gets home. We'll have to learn more about him, alright? Avery nodded, leaving the arms of her mother. She was smiling widely, clearly happy with the change to her body. After all, everyone would dream of having such a pill. It was amazing. While Avery walked away, her mother got closer to Darius, her arms still crossed. She was much shorter than him, only reaching his chest as she looked up into his eyes. She had got so close that her breasts were squishing his body. Still, Darius kept a straight face while noting in the back of his mind that Avery's mother had one hell of a body. Does everyone in this household have big tits? Every single woman he had say in this household had the biggest milkers that he had say in his life. It really was something. Ev the maids had them. Still thinking about the maids, he remembered that Avery had a boyfriend. Something that would have to change right away, and Darius would make sure of that. Avery, go call Jake. I'm sure he would like to know how much you've changed. Yes. She screamed as she ran up the stairs into her room. She was pulling out of her phone as she did so. While she's gone, you and I will have a little discussion. She smiled as she started walking outside. She sat down by the pool as she slowly removed her dress, revealing her perfect body. The only thing covering her body was her bra and her panty. Also, she was just like her daughter. She had fat just in the right places. Her hair wasn't the same color, though, it was brown, and her eyes were pearly blue. For an old woman, she was extremely beautiful, and Darius could only vie her husband. Still, with his skills, Eva mother wasn't untouchable. If he managed to use fingers of pleasure on her, there was a chance that she might just go back to him. So, what's your name? she asked as she slowly sat on the long chair. Darius, what about you? I'm Emma. It's nice to meet you. Sorry about earlier, I didn't mean to attack you or anything. She lay down on her long chair and turned her back facing Darius. Here, put sunscreen on my back while we talk. With pleasure. Darius walked right behind her, grabbing the sunscreen on the table right beside her. This was the perfect opportunity to use fingers of pleasure on her. Bit by bit, she would get addicted to his touch. It would probably take more time than with Yuna since the voice inside his mind had made it easier with her. Still, it was only a matter of time. Soon off, she would be desperate for him, just like Yuna. Putting sunscreen on her back, Darius started rubbing it quickly. Her upper back was quickly sunscreened as Darius reached the lower D of her body, more precisely, her ass. He put both hands on it without the slightest hesitation as a small shout of surprise came out of her mother's mouth. Ah! She screamed. What are you doing? Don't put your hands there. Oh, I'm sorry. Darius apologized as he removed his hand right away. However, the job was already done. She had got a taste of his magical hands. Chapter 21, Avery's dad arrives. Darius was seated right next to Avery's mother, and within the short time they had SPT with one another, they had got to know each other quite well. The two of them were laughing by the pool as if they had been friends for years already. Still, Darius had noticed something. FWH he touched Emma, he didn't get any opportunities to get her to join his Talt squad. Maybe it was because she was too old. He had no clue. I'm home. A man shouted from the other side of the mansion. Dad. You're home. Avery shouted as she ran down the stairs with a smile on her face. Darius and Emma looked at one another as they headed for the trance where Avery's dad was standing, his mouth wide up. Avery? Is that really you? He struggled to speak. What happened to you? You're no longer fat? She frowned. She heard that last word come out of his mouth, but still, it weighed way over her head, considering the changes to her body. Yes. It's all because of him. She pointed toward Darius, who was walking in right next to Emma, who smiled at her husband. And who is he? He asked, losing his smile. A man was walking right next to his wife, and he had never seen him in his entire life. Of course, he wouldn't be happy about it. In fact, he was pretty damn mad. He's Darius. I met him yesterday. He gave me a pill, and it made me lose all my fat in seconds. Her dad frowned heavily, clearly unhappy with what was happening. A pill? Did you know where it came from? Avery hesitated to answer as she knew her dad was extremely mad. She tried to come up with whatever answer that came to her mind, but it was complicated. It's just he wouldn't tell me. And you still took it? His voice raised. I did but look, it worked. What about side effects? I don't know, Dad. Darius watched the conversation before staring at her dad, trying to confirm something about his identity. He wanted to confirm if he was the Juice film director who won an Oscar in a year or two. And yes, it was. Right in front of him was Albert Brighton. He still couldn't recall the name. Darius needed to make a good impression on him. That way, he would be able to establish connections within the film industry. It would open so many doors, too. Feeling his glare, Darius looked at Emma, practically begging for her to gift him. Darius knew that he wasn't important enough to convince the man in front of him. He needed more influence within the world. Aaron, stop giving your daughter a hard time, okay? We'll just go to the doctor tomorrow. He'll tell us if something's wrong with her. In the meantime, we should thank him. He did make our daughter much healthier. So that's what it was. Aaron Brighton. Aaron gritted his teeth while looking toward Darius. He had other things to say, but he didn't want to argue with his wife in front of everyone. TSK, alright. But why would you give something so valuable to our daughter? Because of her potential as a streamer. Darius knew that it would make things extremely complicated. He made her daughter start streaming her body for money, but that was just the best way for her to get known. Still, for the time being, he wouldn't reveal that information, he would keep it for himself and himself only. Partial? What's your job? Some sort of scout? Before Darius could answer, Emma answered once more. It seemed that their short time by the pool had made them much closer. After all, she was in her bra, and she only had her panties on. He's a rookie manager, and he just created his UGC. It's called 12th World. He asked for Avery to join it in exchange for giving her the pill. He didn't say anything just yet. Aaron clearly didn't like what he was hearing, but he didn't say anything, keeping it all inside. And what is he still doing here? Well, I thought it would only be logical for him to eat with all of us tonight. What do you say? He just shrugged as he dropped his bag out of exhaustion. Sure, whatever you want. Aaron walked past the two of them and waited inside the kitchen. He had got so much shock in such little time that he needed to understand everything that had just happened. While I prepare dinner, you can go to my daughter's room. I'm sure she wants to know more about you. She winked at him as she turned and also headed for the kitchen. It seemed Emma and Aaron were about to have a serious conversation. Before Darius entered Avery's room, he started hearing shouts. What were you doing basically naked next to him? And how are you so okay with this? For all we know, he gave her a drug that will ruin her life? Avery quickly closed the door as she didn't want to hear those shouts anymore. However, from the looks on her face, it seemed she was used to it. The two of them might not be getting along all that well. Learning that information, an ever bigger smile appeared on Darius's lips. He might actually be able to have sex with her mother. He shook his head. Never in a billion years would he have thought that a situation like this would be possible for someone like him. Fucking both mother and daughter. If he really were able to do that, it'd be crazy. Still, he dismissed those thoughts from his mind as he looked over to Avery, who was sitting on her bed, still wearing the same bikini as earlier, tears slowly falling out of the corners of her eyes. Darius saw this as an opportunity as he sat right next to her, slowly rubbing her shoulders. You'll be just fine, Darius muttered. What about your boyfriend? Was he happy with your transformation? Why yes, he is coming over tonight, actually. Darius smirked. Perfect. Chapter 22, Dinner in Avery's Family. Time quickly passed as Darius reassured Avery as much as he could. He made sure to touch her as much as possible so that fingers of pleasure would also affect her, just like her mother. He wasn't too sure if it was working, but her face was bright red by the time it was time to eat. Dinner's ready. Emma shouted, calling the two of them downstairs. The two of them stood up from her bed and headed downstairs as someone rang the door. Dring. Oh, it must be him. Avery said excitedly as she ran faster down the stairs. Darius smirked as he couldn't wait to see who would be walking through that door. He couldn't wait to see what her boyfriend looked like. Considering her previous appearance, he shouldn't be all that. The door opened and revealed a young man with a good build. He wasn't fat and was actually quite handsome. However, he wasn't anything compared to Darius, especially with his new appearance. In fact, her boyfriend wasn't anywhere close to his beauty. Avery gave him a hug right away, her tits squeezing tightly against her boyfriend's body. They practically popped out of her body but didn't. Darius still managed to see the side of boobs quite well. So, where is the guy who made you like this? Her boyfriend asked with a frown as he didn't hug her back. After all, that man had cheated on Avery with the maids. He couldn't care less about her. Well, now that she was a total beauty, he might care. But that no longer mattered since Darius was here. He's over there. Darius, calm down. Avery shouted. Her boyfriend didn't say anything as he simply stared at him. He was clearly observing Darius with a lot of action. He might be feeling threatened. Who knows? Still, after a few seconds, he flashed a smile and held his hand out. Wow, it's nice to meet you. I don't know what you did to my girlfriend, but I thank you. She looks better than before. It was no problem, really. Still, look at her. Such a huge change. The maids also arrived at the trance and helped Avery's boyfriend remove his clothes. Darius could see it from where he was standing, but the maids subtly grabbed his dick while they sew, squeezing their bodies against him. Her boyfriend slapped one of the maids' ass discreetly. Darius only smirked, almost pitying Avery for getting fooled by him. It was so painfully obvious, and the thing that shocked Darius the most was the fact that her parts hadn't said anything about it. They couldn't be blind, so they might be in on it, not caring about their daughter all that much. After having his clothes removed, he walked forward with his hand held out. Nice to meet you, Darius, I'm Liam. Darius held him out, and he felt some strgth coming from Liam's side. He seemed to be trying to assert dominance over him. Seeing his pitiful attempt, Darius smirked and put some strgth in the handshake. Liam immediately winced at the pressure, letting go. Darius scoffed as he turned and looked over at Emma, who had put on her long dress again. She was still as beautiful as ever. So, isn't it time to eat? Darius exclaimed, looking over at Emma with a smile. She smiled back at him. Of course. Follow me. Quickly after, they arrived at the dinner table, and Darius was seated right beside Emma and Avery. Avery was on his right, and Emma was on his left. Avery's boyfriend wasn't ever on the same side of the table, meaning that he wouldn't be able to see whatever would happen. Aaron, on the other was at one of the ds of the table. Darius's eyes widened he saw the amount of food on the table. It was literally the same thing as a banquet. There was off food for at least 3 people, and there were only 5 eating it. I can't wait for this to be my life. Maids, Emma said. The 2 maids moved to the table and filled their plates to the absolute brim. One of them placed the plate in front of Darius. She BT forward on purpose right in front of him, showing all of her cleavage. It seemed that they hadn't give up on sleeping with him. A few seconds later, all the plates were filled, and it was time to eat. Aaron was the first one to speak up, and without much surprise, he turned toward Darius. He clearly had a lot of questions on his mind. So, Darius, this Uchi of yours. How long has it been since you've created it? Oh, it's a wrecked project. I only got my first recruit a few days ago. However, things are going quite well. My recruit is quite well tolted, just like your daughter right here. Darius put a hand on Avery's thigh as he said that, and because of what happened back in her bedroom, she had little to no reaction, as if him touching her was totally normal. Still, Darius looked over toward Liam. He could see the frown on his face. He didn't like his girlfriend being touched in front of him. His mouth was closed, though, his jaw clenching. Ah, so a new project. I see. And what kind of potential did you see in my daughter? Darius started massaging Avery's thighs without her father and her boyfriend being able to notice. Well, I saw her play video games. I knew right away that she had a lot of potential streaming. There was also her beauty, which won me over right away. That was a bit of a lie mixed in with the truth, as the only he approached her was because of her beauty behind all that fat. Still, there was no need for anyone at the table to know that. In fact, Emma smiled widely as she heard me say that, hugging me right at the shoulder. Her breasts were tightly squeezed against his body. The craziest thing was that she did this in front of everyone without any problems. Darius also acted as if everything was normal as he put one of his hands on her lower back, practically touching her ass as he hugged her back. Her husband could see the entire thing, and he watched it with a light frown. Still, no words came out of his mouth as he watched his wife being fondled by a man right in front of him. Chapter 23, Avery leaves the table crying. Darius comforts her. Shortly after the hug, Emma took her seat again and continued eating as Aaron stared at Darius with fire in his eyes. He hadn't liked that one bit. Still, Darius couldn't care less. I have another question for you, Aaron said. What are your plans for the future with your Uchi? To make it the biggest one in the entire world, the most powerful, the one with the most connections. With my recruits and my talent at finding them, I'm sure I'll achieve it one day. There's no doubt in my mind that I can do it. Darius wasn't lying. With all the advantages he had over others, if he were to fail, it would be more than embarrassing. There was no doubt about it. Big ambitions. That's good, but who knows if you'll really make it. That's why I don't want my daughter to sign with your Uchi. Dad. Avery shouted right away, trying to protest. However, he held his finger upward and made her shut her mouth. I don't want her to waste her life streaming useless video games. She has better things to do with her time. Darius shook his head. I'm sorry, sir. But that decision isn't yours to make. It's hers. She's the one who can decide of her future. She's barely 8 years old. What are you talking about? She's still at school. What kind of madness is this to ask her to sign a contract with you? Aaron slowly lost his mind as the conversation continued, and he slammed his fist on the table. Her life is already set with our support. She already has a boyfriend, she has friends, she's loved, she has money. She doesn't need you. So, leave her alone. Darius scoffed. He heard that answer. You think this is funny? Aaron asked. There was no hesitation in Darius's eyes as he answered the man in front of him. In fact, he was smiling as he knew Aaron had fucked up big time. Loved? You're not asking for her opinion on this matter, and you shout at your wife without care while she's a Fritz. I'm sorry, but her maids were laughing at her earlier. And that boyfriend of hers. I don't want to get into it. Darius didn't want to reveal to Avery that her boyfriend was cheating on her. Not yet. Still, if he had no choice, he would do it without the slightest hesitation. Don't talk about me, you homeless manager. Look at you, eating your plate as if you've never seen so much food in your life, Liam said. Darius smiled and kept his calm. If I were you, I wouldn't push this. I know a lot more things about you you might think. Liam frowned, unsure what Darius was talking about. They had just met, he couldn't know anything about him. Still, before he could add another comment, Aaron talked again. Both of you stop talking. I don't want to hear the sound of your voice anymore. Avery won't sign a contract with you, and that's the D of it. She will. It doesn't matter whether you disagree. Darius had wanted to make a good impression on the man at the D of the table, but he couldn't lose Avery in the process. He would do everything to make it happen. He couldn't care less about his opinion. Young man. Do you know who I am? I could destroy this little Uchi of yours with a snap of my fingers. I'm telling you. You don't want to do this. Darius just shrugged. He didn't give a shit about half-baked threats. Whatever, do what you want. It won't change anything. Aaron gritted his teeth and he was about to say something else before Emma interfered, telling her husband to stop. Darius glanced at Avery, and she was practically shaking. Tears appeared in the corners in her eyes. Her father stopped talking. He saw the state that she was in. Why you are so mean? Avery shouted as she pushed her chair away from the table and stood up, furious. Just tell me that you don't believe in me. She ran away from the table and immediately headed for the stairs. Liam just looked at her, running away without ever moving. He didn't have tried to go to her and reassure. He just stayed at the table and kept eating. Darius just frowned. He saw that. He knew that Liam was cheating on her, but he didn't ever care about her from the looks of it. Darius taking her away from him would only be a good thing at the end of the day. Clack. The sound of her door slamming echoed through the mansion, and Darius stood up at the same time as Emma. They glanced at one another and said at the same exact time, "I'll go reassure her." The two of them frowned and once again said at the same time, "You can go." They shook their head and laughed. "Let's just go together." Aaron noticed the complicity between his wife and Darius. He clenched his jaw extremely hard, and Darius couldn't help but laugh at him. "Keep looking without saying anything, fucking loser. I'll steal both your wife and your daughter," Darius thought. The two of them walked up to Avery's room, leaving behind her boyfriend and her husband. They would be all three alone in her room. It was a bit like the perfect opportunity to do whatever he wanted. While walking upstairs, Emma and Darius looked at each other awkwardly. Emma was right in front of him, her jiggling with each step she took. Darius was tempted to slap it, but he remembered what had happened back outside. He had put sunscreen on her body. He needed to get closer to her before trying anything. After all, she had a husband. Soon off, they reached Avery's room, and she was crying on her bed. However, this time, her head was stuffed in her pillow to cover the noise. She was still wearing her bikini, showing her beautiful new body. Darius smiled. It was his time to shine. Chapter 24, Yours said. Want a massage? Entering the room, Darius immediately sat on the bed right next to Emma. Are you okay? Darius asked early, still not touching her body. A weak nod. That was the only answer that he had got. Don't worry. I'm sure your dad will realize you're partial once we start working together. Darius didn't want Avery to be all sad. He had already given her a lot of resources with that pill. He needed things to work out, and the first step was for Avery to join his Talt squad since she still wasn't in it. Darius had only say her status and had be convinced, but he hadn't added her yet, taking things slow. Avery, it's mommy, Emma finally said something as she caressed her back. I'll convince your father. Don't worry, he'll listen to me, and if he doesn't I'll ditch him. That was clearly a joke, but for some reason Emma stared at Darius. She uttered those words. Still, the two of them didn't add anything. If you want I can give you a massage, it'll make you feel much better, Darius proposed as he knew that his hands would make her feel much better. Still, Avery shook her head, slowly lifting her head from her pillow while turning a. What were you about to say about my boyfriend down there? I want to know. Darius smirked. It seemed she had understood that he hadn't wanted to say anything in front of everyone. Still, with her mama it should be fine. It was also one of the best timings for him to reveal it to her as she was totally emotionally unstable. Emma shook her head right away as if knowing what Darius was about to say. After all, she probably knew what was happening behind her back. Avery wasn't blind as she also noticed the weird behavior from her mother. Mom? What is it about? Did Liam do something? She clicked her tongue, unsure how to get out of this situation. Liam. He loves you very much, you know that, right? Avery nodded without hesitation. Darius wanted to be the one to tell her. So, he cut off Emma and looked at Avery dead in the eyes. It needed to hurt, she needed to be sad. That way she would go to Darius. She would be at her weakest point. He grabbed her by both her shoulders and said, Your boyfriend is cheating on you. Her eyes widened as she couldn't believe what she had just heard. She shook her head, panicking. Liam. With who? No. He would never do something like this. He's so nice to me. Darius shook his head. I think you were blinded by love. He was cheating right in front of you. This time, Avery frowned. What do you mean by that? It was with the maids. He had sex with the maids without you knowing. They were grabbing his dick. You weren't looking. Avery's eyes drifted toward her mom. Is he telling the truth? Tears formed in the corner of her eyes as Emma didn't seem sure of what to say next. Everything had been said, and she couldn't lie to her daughter again. It would only hurt her later on. He is. He's been cheating on you for months. She frowned. You knew? And you never told me. Darius smiled from the inside. Just like this. Be mad at everyone who lied to you. Trust me. Only trust me. Everything was progressing just like Darius had planned, as Avery was extremely mad at her mother. If things continued this way, Avery would only trust Darius, and that was exactly what he wanted. Emma also started crying as tears fell on her dress, drenching her dress, slowly but surely making it see-through. I'm sorry, Dad, I didn't mean to. It's just with your previous appearance. Your dad and I thought that you would never be able to get another boyfriend. It was for your own good. She frowned. Leave. She said extremely slowly as she pointed toward the door. Emma tried to get closer, but Avery moved back. Don't touch me. Leave. I don't want to see you. Emma didn't know what to say confronted with those harsh words. At the D, she simply stood up, leaving Darius and Avery all alone in the same room. Emma finally left the room. The strong appearance that Avery had put on completely disappeared as she broke down in Darius's arms. She was hugging him tightly, as tears ran down her cheeks, completely drenching his clothes. Thank you for telling me. I'll never forget this. Darius smiled and hugged her back. It's okay. I just thought that you needed to know. Those maids are truly disgusting. To think they would do something like this behind your back. You should make sure that they get fired as soon as possible. MMMH, I will. Now, what about that massage? I promise you. It'll make you forget about everything that just happened. Avery slowly moved away from Darius's body, her tits bouncing as she moved back. Really? Yes. I will make you feel so good that all those negative thoughts will disappear from your mind. Darius put one of his hands on her face, slowly caressing it. Just promise me one thing. Sure, anything. Promise me that you will listen to your body's instincts. Lose yourself in pleasure if that's what it wants. Avery wasn't sure why Darius was talking about pleasure and things like that, but she still nodded. There was no reason to refuse. Perfect? Which side do you want me to massage first? The front or the back? She thought for a bit. The back would be better. Quickly after saying that, she lay down on the bed, waiting for Darius to start. Is it fine if I get on top of you? It'll make things easier for me. Sure, I don't mind. Darius got right on top of her as he made sure that his long and hard rod would rub on her pussy through her clothes while he massaged her. It's time to make you addicted to my touch. Chapter 25, Humiliating Liam. Avery removes her top in front of him. Darius started massaging the back of her body. He didn't try to touch her ass or anything as he really massaged her normally. The only thing that was tempting him right now was her side boobs. Because she was lying on the bed, her breasts were tightly squeezed against the bed, making her side boobs reveal themselves. As he massaged her back, his hand slipped and touched those lumps of fat. However, she didn't say anything, as Darius continued to touch them. It seemed she didn't care. Hey, could you remove the upper part of your bikini or remove the knot? It makes things harder for me. Avery didn't ever think for another second as she detached her bikini, undoing the knot in her back. Here. Also, you were right. Your hands are something else. Could you massage my lower back a little more? It hurts more down there. Her face was bright red as she uttered those words. However, she was talking about her lower back, and she wasn't talking about her ass like Yuna had done. Darius lowered his hands and continued to massage her while making sure to rub his dick on her pussy at every possible time. Since nothing much was happening, Darius decided to talk with her as he massaged her. So, are you thinking of breaking up with your boyfriend? We've already broke up. He just doesn't know it yet. Knock. 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 Ave. It's me, Liam. Will you open the door? Darius smiled. If he opened the door right now in the position that they were in, he would surely cry. It would be a funny sight, but he needed to keep a straight face. Go away. I don't want to talk to you. Come on. It was only one time. I never did again because I felt so bad. Lies. Darius had to admit it. That man was good at manipulating others. But he wasn't as good as Darius. Knowing that it was an opportunity that wouldn't come again, Darius BT forward over Avery's body, pinning her down, and said, "Do you want to make him regret his actions?" She looked back with a blush because of how close they were. However, she still didn't comment on that. What did you have in mind? Darius smiled. That was what he had wanted to hear. It was now time to humiliate her boyfriend. 5 minutes later, her boyfriend was still at the door, begging to be let in. Please, let me in. I promise you, I'll never do it again. Liam heard some giggles from the other side of the door and frowned. You better not be cheating on me with that homeless guy from earlier. He shouted, clear frustration in his voice. If I open the door, will you leave me alone once and for all? Liam smiled. Of course. Whatever you want. He knew that he would be able to convince Avery. He had done that ever since they had gone out together. After all, he had convinced her to wait until marriage to do anything with one another. They hadn't ever kissed each other. Thinking about all those things, Liam's confidence increased. Avery slowly opened the door, and she sat on the bed next to Darius, who had a big smile on his face. "Come in." Liam clenched his jaw. "Can't we talk alone?" "I don't want M.A." Avery shook her head and gave Darius a light hug. "No. I feel better with M.A." He clicked his tongue. "Whatever, not like it matters. Either way, I just wanna apologize. I know that it wasn't right of me to do that. But I'm telling you, it was only one time. We'll never do it again." "You'll never do something like that again?" Avery said as she sat right next to Darius. Her head rested on his shoulder and she hugged him even tighter than earlier. Her breasts practically came out of her bikini. "You. Get away from her. Who told you that you could be so close to her?" Liam said as he noticed that something weird was happening between the two of them. Darius scoffed right in his face. "What are you going to do about it?" He grabbed Avery by her waist and dropped her right over his dick. Darius's dick was still in his pants, but Avery could feel it, slowly rubbing against her pussy just like before. "Avery, get away from him," Liam ordered. "Don't torture her, eh? You lied to her for months." Still, there was another question that was on Darius's mind. "Still, let me ask you something. Do you ever like Avery?" "Of course I do. She's the first girlfriend I ever had," he muttered. "Ever since she transformed in this new body of hers. I've wanted to fuck her." "Did you two ever fuck?" Darius asked as he hugged Avery from behind, tightly holding her by her small waist. "MMMH." Avery tried to contain her excitement. "We never did it. He told me to wait until marriage." "What about kissing?" He never wanted to do it." Darius smiled as he stared into Liam's eyes. Shouldn't I teach you how to kiss?" Liam clenched his fists as he ran up to Darius, trying to punch him right in the face. However, everything from his form to his strike was messy, and Darius quickly managed to dodge it. "Nice one. But stay put." Darius placed a foot on his face and held him on the G. Beep. Quest, humiliate Liam by kissing and fondling his girlfriend right in front of him. Reward, new skill, aura, humiliate him? I was already going to do that. Thanks system. Darius looked downward and smiled at him. Watch and enjoy the show. Avery. Remove your top, Darius ordered. Avery quickly nodded as she detached the back of her bikini, letting it fall right over Liam's face. Darius didn't waste any time as he grabbed her tits and started massaging them. MMMH. This feels so good, Avery muttered as she looked back into Darius's eyes. Why, you son of a bitch. Don't touch her. She's mine. I was supposed to be the first one to touch her body. Chapter 26. The boyfriend finds out Darius fondled her breasts right in front of Liam, who couldn't help but watch as Avery just looked too good. Darius laughed at him. Are you enjoying watching me touch your girlfriend? Damn, you're more of a loser than I thought. MMMH. Avery moaned very lightly. It was her first time being fondled by a man, and she was enjoying every moment. Stop. Liam shouted. Don't touch her. Avery, do you hear that? Your boyfriend is begging me to stop touching you? Avery shook her head and grabbed Darius's second hand, putting her on her other tit. He's not my boyfriend at all. I don't ever like him anymore. Darius smiled. He heard those words as he was getting closer to completing what he had came to do, conquer Avery. Oh, he's not ever your boyfriend anymore? Hear that, loser? Darius asked, still with his feet on his face. Liam started breathing heavily. He didn't know what to do as he could only close his eyes to escape what was happening. Avery was getting touched by another man right in front of him. Liam wouldn't have cared in the past, but this time he just had to. His girlfriend wasn't ugly anymore, she was one of the most beautiful women he had seen in his life. He wanted to be the one touching her breasts. So, why was it Darius? Avery. Are you pulling some kind of joke on me? A joke? Does this look like a joke to you? I told you, just watch and enjoy the show. I'll show you something good, Darius said with a smile. He hit Avery's ass cheek out of nowhere. HNNG. Avery fell forward because of the force in Darius's strike. She was now defenseless on the G, topless, with only her bikini bottom covering her pussy. That feels so good. Darius could see it from where he was standing, but Avery was wet, extremely wet. If she hadn't had her bikini on, the floor would have been drenched by now. Still, Darius was surprised to hear her say that she liked this. That hadn't been part of the plan they had made before opening the door. It was a welcome change, though. Darius glanced at Liam, who clenched his teeth tightly and had his eyes closed. It seemed like he didn't want to see anything anymore. Why are your eyes closed? You don't want to watch the show I prepared for you? Darius said. Also, why are you so mad? I'm not forcing Avery at all. She's doing this on her own. Right, Avery? Oh, of course. Darius would never force me to do anything. Subtly, Liam managed to move away from Darius's feet. As he lunged forward, his fist tightened. He once again tried to hit Darius. However, the same thing as before happened. He fell on the G and hurt himself. This time, he got up closer to Avery's body. You wanted to get a better view, huh? Well, I can understand. Avery is quite the attractive lady. Why, you bastard. What have you done to Avery? She would have never done something like this in the past. Darius scoffed. Why are you blaming me? Aren't you the one who cheated on her with her own maids? If there's a bastard here, it's you. Darius didn't like to hit others. But he felt it was necessary, as he kicked him right in the stomach. Liam held his stomach as he curled up on the floor, trying to draw the pain. After I'm done today, I don't ever want to see you near Avery again. I hope I'm clear. From now on, don't move and watch. Darius smiled while turning toward Avery's vulnerable body. Don't you dare close your eyes. Darius got right beside Avery and made her stand up. She closed her eyes and tried to kiss Darius. A smile appeared on Darius's face. Watch Avery get eat right in front of your eyes by a complete stranger. No. A tear formed in the corner of Liam's eyes. How? Liam watched as Darius kissed Avery dearly. However, the worst thing about all this was that she was the one giving in. She was the one who kept trying to kiss him. Why can't I move my body anymore? Liam thought. I should tell her parts about what's happening. Darius fondled her breasts once again and continued to kiss her. Kaya. Avery shouted out of surprise. Avery, remove the bottom half of your bikini. Darius wasn't sure if she would listen to him since he had only told her that she had to remove her top. However, with a blush, she slowly removed it. She was now completely naked in the middle of the room, observed by 2M. The innoct Avery was slowly getting corrupted by Darius. It would make her streaming transition a lot easier. That's for sure. She was done removing her panties. Darius hugged her from behind as one of his hands started rubbing her pussy, making her come almost instantly. Some of her body fluids weight on Liam's face, who still had his eyes wide up. He was still watching, and the worst thing about it was that he was hard while doing so. Darius noticed this and laughed. Haha. I told you you'd enjoy the show. And moans kept coming out of Avery's mouth as she couldn't contain them anymore. She started shaking as Darius held her, or else she would have fallen on the G. She no longer had any strgth in her legs. It strangely resembled what had happened with Yuna. The only difference was that there was a nodus this time. Does it feel good, Avery? Darius asked. Do you like me touching you, or would you prefer Liam? Mage. I prefer you, of course. She gave in to her instincts as she no longer cared about her previous boyfriend. Her eyes only looked at Darius as she kept coming again and again, reaching the floor of her room. Suddenly, Darius let her go, and she fell onto the floor. Her ass raised up toward him, her body fluids dripping from her pussy. Congrats. You have completed yet another quest, reward obtained, new skill, aura passive, your priest intimidates others. You can scare people weaker than you with a glance. It also gives you such a charm that ladies struggle to resist your advances. Oh. That's perfect. Chapter 27, Parents arriving in Avery's room. Darius's eyes drifted right away toward Liam, who was still on a G, unable to move. He wanted to see the effects of aura on him. And right as Darius stared at him, Liam started shaking on the G. He was completely lost as he started crying from the pressure. One thing was sure, it was in Liam's best interest to stay as far as possible from Avery, or he would suffer the consequences. Darius stared at Avery, who was on the G, barely able to stand up. Suddenly, he started hearing footsteps. People were approaching her room. After all, it made sense, considering that Avery kept moaning as loud as possible. Hearing them, Darius found a pair of pants and a long shirt and threw it over to Avery, who put it on right away. As for Liam, who could keep crying, it wouldn't change anything. He could point his finger at Darius and tell her parts what he had done, but why would they believe him? He was a liar. There were now knocks on the door. Avery barely managed to put on her clothes before standing up. It had to appear like nothing had happened inside the room. Darius was the one to open the door, and he did so with a smile. Oh. Are you here to talk to Avery? Aaron frowned as he pushed Darius away from the trance. Move out of the way. We kept hearing shouts from down there. His frown was only actuated he saw the state of the room that he was currently in. Everything was messy. There was water on the G. Liam was crying. In the corner of the room. His daughter's face was all red. A lot of things had happened here, but he just couldn't tell what it was. Why is he crying? Aaron asked as his wife was right behind him. Avery made him regret cheating on her, Darius replied. Aaron simply nodded. What about you, Avery? Why are you all sweaty and red? Did something happen? Avery just shook her head inactively. No. Nothing happened. We were all calmly talking on my bed. That's all. Liam, get out of my house, my daughter clearly doesn't want you anymore. After saying that, he turned toward Darius with raised eyebrows. As for you. You can stay depending on what my daughter has to say. Avery quickly nodded. Why yes, he can stay the night if he wants. I don't mind. Emma smiled. I'll prepare a separate room for him. However, right as Emma was about to leave, Avery shook her head and weakly uttered. We can use the same room. It'll be fine. Emma understood what was happening between the two of them and smiled. She gave her thumbs up to cheer her on. She had no idea what had just happened, and it showed. After saying that, Liam still hadn't moved from the G as he looked at him. Aaron sighed. Liam, are you deaf? I told you to leave this house, and I better not see you again. Liam hazily stood up and ran out. He would forever remember this moment for the rest of life. Darius had done a good job at humiliating him, as the system recognized it. Aaron acted like a good father for once while he had known about the cheating for literal months. He wasn't a saint, and he would pay the price through his wife. Darius didn't know or how, but one day, his wife would cheat on him with Darius. Emma turned toward Darius as no one had asked him if he wanted to stay over for the night. Do you want to sleep here? It's getting late, and I don't really live close. So, it'd be for the best. Darius kept feeling his phone vibrate in his pocket as he uttered those words as if someone was calling him. If you'll excuse me, I have a call. Darius headed out of the room as he looked at who was calling him. He wasn't very surprised. He saw that it was Yuna. Hello? Finally, you're answering. I've been calling you all day. Where have you been? Darius smiled. Well, I've been busy. What did you need? She sighed, and Darius managed to hear it from the other side of the phone. Isn't it obvious? I need to make money. You didn't find me any brand deals to do. Darius knew that he had fucked up a little. But it was only one day, and she had a lot of time in front of herself. Sorry, I was really busy today. I'll make sure you have one for tomorrow. She clicked her tongue. What were you busy with? Aren't I your only recruit? Darius hesitated for a few seconds before answering, as he could already imagine Yuna shouting in his ear. He announced to her the news about him having a new recruit and the fact that she was a girl. After all, jealousy was one of Yuna's big personality traits. There was no way to guess her reaction. I can't tell you right now what I was working on. But don't worry, it'll help you in the long run. TSK. Fine, next time, answer my calls. I've been trying to contact you all day. She stopped talking for a good second before adding very quietly. I missed you. Same here, Darius said as he noticed Avery's parts walking toward him. Alright, I got to go. Just rest today. I'll take care of you tomorrow. Don't worry. Darius quickly did the call as he didn't want Yuna to hear anything about what was happening right now. Aaron laughed. He heard the words coming out of my mouth. Is that your other recruit on the phone? Yeah. She was wondering where I was. Either way, I solved everything. Aaron nodded. For some reason, his opinion about Darius seemed to have changed as he had stopped acting like an arrogant to him. Well, have a good night with my daughter. She seems to like you a lot. I hope you won't break her trust. Oh, don't you worry, we'll have one hell of a night. Chapter 28, Teaching Avery How to Give a Blowjob. Nightfall arrived, and Darius found its way in Avery's bed. It was a king-sized bed, which meant that had a lot of place to sleep in the same bed. However, who knows if they were ever going to sleep tonight? Well, Darius knew that the answer to that question was no. Avery, on the other hand, didn't. Also, because of what happened in front of her boyfriend. Darius had seen Avery gain a few stats, her trait and aptitudes were slowly increasing bit by bit. She had gained 4 points in charm because of the fat loss pill and from their intimate moments. Her confids had also skyrocketed, increasing by 5 points. Her entertainment stat raised just a little from 5 to 3 points. Overall, the fat loss pill had given her a lot of stats that made her a lot better at being a streamer. Hey Avery said, hesitating. I just want to thank you for today. You did a lot of things for me and I appreciate it. They were both looking at each other under the bed sheets, staring at one another. There was a certain distance between the two of them because of everything that had happened between her and Darius, especially before her parts arrived. Also I don't know how to say this, but... This time, she was hesitating more to talk. Her face blushing before the words came out of her mouth.
I felt good. You did that back there. Darius frowned and acted naive on purpose. What did I do? She looked away from him. Well, you know, kissing me, and you fondled my breasts. I felt very good. Your massage was also very nice. Darius acted all embarrassed. Ah. Well, it was only to embarrass your boyfriend. We don't need to do again or anything. I didn't mean to slap your ass back. She shook her head instantly. No, that also felt good. Darius smiled at her as his eyes lowered, and observed her body and outfit. She had quickly changed. She was now wearing a pajamas, which consisted of an oversized t-shirt, and pajama pants. However, because of the size of her ass, it was showing her curves perfectly. She just looked cute and knocked. Well, that was how Avery was right now. If you want, I can give you another massage. I'm sure you must still be C from today. Why you would do that? She asked, her face blushing. She already knew that Darius's massages were different from the normal ones. However, there was a smile on her face. He proposed it. She wanted more of him, Darius could tell. Sure, just remove your shirt like earlier. That way, I can massage everything. Oh, okay. Avery nodded with a blush as she slowly removed her t-shirt and revealed her naked upper body to Darius. Her plump breasts still facing him as if it had become a normality. However, this time Darius hadn't planned on teasing her for minutes before passing to the act. He would speed things up this time, He snuggled his way behind her as they were practically in a spoon position. Darius was so close to Avery that she was bound to feel the girth of his dick rubbing against her body. However, Avery once again didn't say anything. She also wanted this. There was a reason that she had invited him in his room. Can I massage here? Darius asked as he placed his hands on one of her breasts. Why yes, you can do whatever you want. I don't mind. A smirk appeared on Darius's face. Everything in the room was dark as he could barely see anything. However, he didn't need to, he could feel the parts of her body. This soft, lumps of fat were quite different from anything he had touched in his life. He started massaging them and instantly Avery started enjoying it. Mage. Darius got closer to her and whispered something in her ear. Do you want to go further than earlier? I do. Just tell me what to do. I don't have any express doing this stuff. And there we go. Darius had done it. He was about to have sex with yet another of his recruits. His two recruits were now his, and only his. He would be able to use Alt Booster and the two of them consistently without the slightest problem. What else could he ask for? Thinking about it, Darius remembered that he still hadn't got his dick sucked by Yuna or anyone ever since he had come back 0 years in the past. Remove my pants. I'll teach you everything. Don't worry. She gulped as he removed the bedsheets from her body. She pulled on Darius's pants, revealing his long and large rod. Is that your? Yes. Why is it so big? I saw Liam's, and it was so much smaller. Are they all supposed to be that big? Darius smiled at her in Ox. No, mine is big. However, the bigger it is, the better it will make you feel. So now what do I do? Avery asked as she stared at Darius's kiss with wide eyes. Grab it with both of your hands and start moving your hands up and down. She grabbed his rod with both her hands and started moving up and down clumsily. However, it still felt good. Big pillar. You need to treat it as if it's the most precious thing in your life. She nodded as she started slowing down. Perfect. Now, bring your mouth closer to it and try to suck on it. Avery gulped as she wasn't sure if something so big would fit her mouth. Still, she listed as she brought her mouth closer and opened wide. She managed to suck only the tip as nothing else would fit in her mouth. Quickly after, she realized that she couldn't do what she was asked for and looked back up. It's too big. Are you sure that it's possible? He patted her head. Don't worry, you'll get used to my size soon enough. Do it again. I'll help you. She tried to force his dick into her mouth, but it wouldn't go past the very tip. However, Darius put both his hands in the back of her head and pushed on it as she was subtly at the very base of it. She had gobbled all of it in one go. Cough. She removed her head right away as there were tears in the corner of her eyes because she had just choked on his dick. Darius smiled at her. Try again. We'll do this until your throat is used to it. Chapter 29, Creampy. It went on for minutes, and by the end of it, Avery was starting to get used to his size quite well. She could only reach the halfway point of his rod, but that wasn't too bad, considering that it was her first time. However, at one point, her throat was simply hurting too much as she looked up to Darius with tears in her eyes. Can't we do something else than that? It really hurts now. Darius smiled at her and patted her head. You did a good job, don't worry. Darius had quite liked her sucking his dick. However, it was clear that she had no express as it wasn't as good as he remembered in his past memories. Still, It was only a matter of time before she got used to it. Since you pleasured me just now, it'll be my turn now, Darius declared as he grabbed her and threw her on the bed. Her back was all arched up, ready to receive whatever Darius wanted to give her. She was already wet. Darius tried touching her pussy, and it gushed out with liquid. She was ready to take it all the way in. Are you ready to have sex with me? Darius asked. She looked back with a slight nod. Why yes, I trust you. Give it to me. Darius couldn't help but giggle hearing her answer as everything had happened so quickly. A few hours ago, she had a boyfriend, she had never kissed anyone or done anything with boys, but now she was on the verge of fucking with one. All of that had happened on the very first day they had met. Her body had also turned from a fat and ugly one to a perfect one. She had a slim waist, a fat ass that jiggled with every movement, and tits that were so big that Darius couldn't ever hold it with one hand. That fat loss pill was literally an artifact that came from a goddess, and it had changed Avery's life forever. Hearing her weak and shy voice, Darius nodded as he brought his rod closer to her pussy. It slowly rubbed it and slowly teared it. Mage. It didn't seem to hurt as she moaned almost instantly. However, Darius had only teared half of his dick inside her pussy. Darius found it strange that it didn't hurt her, considering the size of his dick. However, it might be a side effect of his system since it hadn't hurt Yuna that much either. Both of them had strangely got used to it pretty quick. The best thing about them being virgins was the fact that nothing had ever teared their pussies apart from their fingers, meaning that their insides would be shaped by Darius's dick, making them his. After stopping momentarily, Darius moved back as he was about to tear his tired dick inside of her pussy. Ready? She looked back with little hearts in her eyes. And fuck me. Darius didn't need to be told this twice as he rammed his dick all the way to her womb. And harder. Fuck me harder. Immediately, she started moaning, asking for more and more, which was strange as this was her first time. Still, Darius continued. This time, he rammed his dick ever harder into her. He grabbed her tits as he laid on her body, continuing to fuck her as hard as possible. He played with her tits while kissing her neck. He could feel himself getting closer and closer to coming as her insides were just so tight. It was squeezing him every time that he would go in deeper, practically begging him to release his thick liquid into her deepest parts. It hadn't done this with Yuna, as he had been able to control himself. However, Avery's pussy was something else. Darius stopped for a moment as he knew that he was bound to come in 1 or 2 strokes. Avery looked back with a frown. Mage. Why did you stop? Darius didn't say anything as he turned her a. They were now facing one another. He decided to play with her before continuing as he put 2 of his fingers inside her pussy and started playing with her. However, she shook her head, almost having no reaction. In fact, she grabbed his dick and started stroking it. I don't want your fingers. I want this, she said as she pointed toward his dick with her other hand. Darius felt something awake inside him as he smiled in her direction. Are you sure you're not going to lose your mind if I tear it inside your pussy again? I don't care. Just fuck me brainless, it just feels so fucking good. Darius had no other choice as his dick got ever harder, getting ever bigger. He teared it again as deep as possible. ANNH. So deep. Darius smirked. You haven't say anything yet. After fucking her for a few more seconds, both Darius and Avery were on the verge of coming. And I'm about to come. Same. Still, Darius was faced with a request that he had never expected from the sweet and inoct Avery. See, can you choke me? She asked, looking away from Darius's eyes. Darius didn't ever reply as he placed his hand on her throat and held it as he fucked her brainless. Her eyes rolled all the way back. I'm coming. Right as she came, her body started to shake. I'm also going to come. Come inside me. Darius smiled. I was already going to do that, but thank you for the invitation. Both of them came at the same time as the pleasure was too much for the 2 of them as they fell asleep while cuddling with one another. Darius's dick was still inside her body as they fell asleep. The only thing Darius heard before going to sleep was a bunch of noise inside his mind. It seemed he had got a lot of rewards today. Chapter 30, Yuna's socials are blowing up. The sun rose up at the same time as Darius. He was still all tangled up with Avery, with the only difference being that his dick wasn't inside her anymore. Avery was still sound asleep. All of a sudden, a bunch of messages appeared right in front of him. You have got sex with Avery Brighton, +5 entertained, +5 video games, plus charm. It was honestly a little annoying that Avery hadn't drunk his cum since she didn't receive any extra stats from his passive skill, Delicious Milk. Still, it wasn't too bad overall, and Avery slowly became more tilted. However, what mattered the most was the fact that she was now part of his Talt squad, without a boyfriend and with a new boyfriend, aka Darius. She was now totally his,
as Darius was her first everything. Nonetheless, Darius didn't want to stay here any longer as he had promised Yuna that he would set something up for her today. Upping his cell phone, Darius was about to call Yuna. He noticed that his histogram had a bunch of notifications. It was curtly writ +99 in the right corner of his app. Did something happen with my account? He naively thought. Not sure what was happening, Darius clicked on his app and instantly realized what was happening. The post that he had made for Yuna 2 or 3 days ago. She had her first photo shoot. The video had practically blown up on the scale of an unknown influencer. It had 50 views, 3 likes, and 30 comments. It was needless to say that most of her new followers were horny after her beauty. In fact, the comments on that post were absolutely crazy. Daddy 3, you're so fucking hot. Please open only fun. Horny male 3, remove your top. I'm in love. Your body is flawless. However, in the midst of all those comments, there was one of them which was totally different from those of horny M. It seemed to come from a small music studio. Apex Studio, I read in your bio that you are a singer. We DM'd you. Please reply to us. We're very interested in you. Darius went straight to his direct messages, where he found a bunch of useless DMs from M. However, he was looking for one in particular, and he found it in less than a minute. The Apex Studio was inviting her to a studio session to test her singing talents. They also mentioned that they were trying to find a singer for the new group that they had just created. Darius quickly responded to their offer and closed the app. He still had to get to the other side of the city since the address they had given for the studio wasn't anywhere close to Avery's house. In fact, it was close to Eunice. Very quickly, Darius got out of Avery's bed. He left a note with his number on it, that way, they would be able to contact one another. After that, Darius left without saying goodbye to anyone. Or at least, that's what he had been planning on doing since right as he was about to cross the door to leave. He felt an extremely soft touch on his right shoulder. Leaving so soon? Darius didn't ever need to look to know that it was Emma talking. It seemed she was already awake. Fuck. It would be troublesome if she were to hate him for leaving her daughter like this after fucking her. Because Darius knew that she knew about what had happened last night. Avery had been screaming so loud that there was no way that she hadn't heard it. Either way, Darius put on the greatest smile that he could muster as he looked in her direction. I'm so sorry. I have to get going. My other recruit is about to have a meeting for her future music career on the opposite side of the city. Darius turned to saying that he was extremely surprised to see that Emma wasn't wearing any clothes except for a long blouse, which barely covered her biggest features, her ass and her breasts. Still, Darius couldn't waste more time here, and he needed to go. He couldn't get tempted by her alluring figure. I understand. Just make sure to come back soon. I really want another massage of yours. She winked right as she said that, making it clear that there was another meaning to her sts. Darius, for the first time in a long time, blushed because of her beauty. She was doing this in her very own house. Her husband was sleeping right now, and she was curtly teasing him about coming back and giving her a massage. Sure, I'll see what I can do. She slowly grabbed the upper part of her blouse and showed Darius one of her breasts. She smiled. She noticed how flushed Darius's face was. You think I didn't notice your stares back? Don't worry, I won't tell my husband. You can give me one of the massages you gave my daughter anytime. Alright. I need to go. Darius left as he ran outside as fast as he could. He called a cab and left the place. He was sure to come back soon off as he now had both Aaron's wife and daughter wrapped to his fingers for some reason. He hadn't expected Emma to be so interested in him, but it seemed that she was frustrated sexually from how off she was with him. Maybe Avery's moans awaked something within her. He shook his head, not able to believe this. Nevertheless, having both of them favor him was great for one simple reason. It would make things a lot easier. Darius acquired his next recruit, which would be an actress. Darius already had one in mind, but it would have to wait as he took the cab to the other side of the city where Yuna's musical career would finally begin. He only needed to tell her the big news.